Chapter 2:16. This time, in order to build the boat, the technical workers in the tribe also joined in. Regardless of whether they were doing woodwork or setting traps, all the skilled people participated in this work. Because they were skilled, they learned things quickly. What Xueqi and the others had mastered, the skilled workers in the tribe could also quickly master. When the time came, everyone would discuss and brainstorm together, and eventually they would be able to make something. Xueqi often joined in their discussions. Although Xueqi was not proficient in building boats, he had seen more big boats and could give more suggestions on the design. When the hunting team went out, they had to prepare food, wood, herbs, and various other necessities. At the same time, they had to improve their strength. Without strength, how could they fight in the tribe? Of course, they had to keep their lives. Otherwise, it was not worthwhile. On the mountain, Xueqi and the others had been settled down. Because it was not the time of the annual sacrifice, they had not awakened their totem power yet. They had to wait until the beginning of next year, when they could awaken their totem power with the next batch of children who met the conditions. Although they had to wait for half a year, Xueqi and the others were very happy. After all, they were back in the tribe. They were no longer rootless duckweeds and would not be bullied by others. After living in the tribe for a few days, they also learned about the living conditions of the tribe. They had confidence in the Yanjiao tribe and were looking forward to the tribe moving back to the old land. "How is it?" Yanjua asked his wife, who came in from outside. He knew that his wife had been trying to make pottery these days. Yanzhen shook her head. "It can't be done." The eyes of the several old men sitting next to her also became gloomy. As Xueqi said, even if they had the technology of making pottery, they could not make pottery here. What they made was either broken or fragile. It was no wonder that in the past 1,000 years, the Yanjiao tribe had basically used stone tools. "It's okay," Xing suppressed his disappointment and said with a smile. "When we go back to the old land, we will try again." "Yes, when we go back to the old land, everything will be different," the other old men also said. Xueqi and the others were settled here. It was said that they were taking care of them, but in fact, everyone wanted to know more information from them. Being tyrannical in the nest was different from being tyrannical outside. Once they were outside, if they wanted to continue being tyrannical, they would need to have the capital and strength to be tyrannical. Just like hunting, it was better to know the habits of the prey. If they wanted to know the situation on the other side of the river, the best way was to learn from Xueqi and the others. While Xueqi and the others were talking about pottery, they saw people walking down the path of glory from the top of the mountain. "Are those the hunting team?" Xueqi suppressed his excitement and asked. "Yes, because the plan has changed. From now on, there will be more people going out each time," an old man said. "Hunting? Ominous beasts?" Zhao Wu still couldn't believe it. The hunting team is quite imposing," an old man said. Xing glanced over and said, "Because the leader told them that on the other side of the river, there are many people who are stronger than the beasts. This time, there are probably many people who want to use the beasts to practice." Xueqi and the others. There were many people who were more powerful than ferocious beasts? These words were slightly exaggerated. However, it seemed that many people in the tribe believed it. Xueqi was also in the hunting team this time. He still left with Mai and the others. However, when they left the tribe and entered the familiar forest, all the members of the advance group, who were supposed to go to the Green Land, went to the Bat Mountain with Xueqi. The other 5 hunting teams, which had expanded their numbers, and the hunting team that had opened up a new hunting route, had a total of 6 hunting teams of more than 500 people. However, they all stayed in the first hunting area to hunt. In the following time, unless they received the news, the leaders of the hunting teams would not continue to lead the team forward. This was also to prevent Xueqi from being in danger, so that they could go to his rescue. However, except for several small leaders and several important people in the team, no one else knew about this. They only thought that it was because of the change of the return plan, so they didn't ask much. On the other side, after Xueqi, Ta, and the others separated from the hunting team, they waited for a while and met up with Gigu and the others. Finding the fire crystals was a big deal. It was related to the return of the tribe, so the shaman and the chief attached great importance to it. Naturally, they had to send more people. At the same time, Ta and Gigu were also summoned by the shaman. He told them that if it was too difficult to find the fire crystals, they could give up, but they must ensure the safety of Xueqi. The 2 team leaders also understood the significance of Xueqi to the tribe. This guy might be really blessed by the ancestors, so they had to protect him. The two team leaders and their subordinates were so active. They also regretted that they couldn't participate in the fire crystal digging. After such a long time, they finally had such an opportunity again. Naturally, they wouldn't let it go. They had already learned about the condition of the vampire bats from the warriors in the hunting team. They also prepared herbs to prevent people from losing their ability to move after being bitten. Xueqi took them to the giant pit where the fire crystals were dug. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they found two people standing there. Father? Ta was surprised. The people standing at the foot of the mountain were the chief Ao and another senior totem warrior, Dai, whose strength was similar to Ao's. Chief? Why are you here? Xueqi asked. He didn't ask the chief to come here before. The shaman is worried, so am I, Ao smiled. However, when he looked at the mountain in front of him, which was not very tall, the smile on Ao's face disappeared. Dai, who was beside him, also had a serious look on his face. It's not easy, Dai said. Looking at the tall mountain in the distance, Ao asked, those bats, did they all fly there? Yes. Xueqi nodded. No. Ao shook his head. Not all of them. The mountain in front of us is like this now. It must be caused by the bats. They came back often. Not a single blade of grass could be seen on the mountain, which was not very high. Most of the plants on the mountain had withered. The plants that were still growing on the mountain were almost all highly poisonous plants. There were also extremely rare medicinal plants, but they were very rare. Compared with the last time, it has changed a lot. Xueqi said, the last time I came here, it was not so serious. If it was the poisonous miasma caused by the corpses in the mountain, it would be too much. There was some black fog floating in the open air of the mountain. That was to say, it was very likely that, as Ao said, bats often came here, so it caused such a change. Why did those bats still come to this small place after they migrated? Logically speaking, with a new and bigger place, why did they still stay in this small place? It should have been abandoned. Is there really a fire crystal mine here? Ta's eyes flashed. Anyway, let's go in and have a look, Ao said. Wearing the rattan mask, they went to the giant pit on the mountain. For the tribe, even if it was dangerous, they had to go. Chapter 217. This time, Cha-Cha and Caesar came with them. Cha-Cha was searching in the sky. If he found anything unusual, he would warn Xueqi. Walking from the foot of the mountain to the top, they were surrounded by black miasma. If a junior totem warrior was here, he might not be able to withstand it. Even Xueqi and the others felt a little uncomfortable. Xian, did you encounter this when you came here last time? Xueqi asked. No, last time, there was only miasma in the cave. Outside the mountain, there was grass and other plants. Xueqi said. But now, as far as they could see, there were almost no trees. Even if there were, they were dead and rotten, not to mention the fresh green grass. It was all because of the miasma. Everyone was slightly nervous. They knew that the mission this time was not simple. While walking, Xueqi stopped and listened carefully. It was like the sound he heard when he came here last time. There was a rhythmic sound of airflow, like someone was breathing. What's wrong, Xian? Gigu, who was walking behind Xueqi, asked confusedly. What did you find? Ao, who was in the front, also stopped. The breathing sound could not be heard by others, not even by Ao. It's here, Xueqi said. It. Ta thought of something and became serious. The bat leader? Xueqi nodded. Didn't you say they went somewhere else? Xueqi turned his head and looked at the mountain in the distance. Looking from here, they could see the mountain in the distance, which was much higher than the surrounding mountains. The mountain was surrounded by clouds and mist, and the top of the mountain was covered with white snow. That was the place where the bats had gone. Later, it was confirmed that the bats had occupied that place, and all the cave bears had been driven away. I don't know why, but I am sure that the bat leader is in this mountain. Xueqi pointed at the foot and said. After some thought, Ao said, let's go up and take a look. The last time he dug out the fire crystals, it was in the giant pit on the mountain. This time, he naturally had to go to the giant pit to have a look. As they continued to climb up the mountain, Xueqi told Caesar not to get too close. He also gestured to Cha-Cha in the sky to stop them from following them. In the wild, There was a strong sense of repulsion between vicious beasts. A single mistake could lead to an intense and endless conflict. The mountain was not high, and they soon arrived at the crater at the top of the mountain. The last time Xueqi had found this place to help search for people, he could still clearly see the situation in the sinkhole and the various plants growing on the walls of the sinkhole. But now it was completely different. The black fog was even thicker than the fog at the foot of the mountain. The originally clear sky seemed a little gloomy because of the poisonous miasma. Under the sinkhole, there was an even thicker poisonous miasma. The people standing above could not see the situation below the sinkhole at all. What should we do? Tower and Gigu both looked at Ao. Since the leader was here, he naturally listened to the leader. Dai and I will go down and have a look first, Ao said, putting down a bundle of thick straw rope made of rattan and grass. He and Dai went down along the straw rope, one in front of the other. The others stared at the sinkhole nervously, even though they could not see anything. There were no other bats around. From the foot of the mountain to the top, they did not see any other bats. But Xueqi listened to the rhythmic breathing sound and was very worried. He still remembered that last time when he and Mai went into the cave and encountered the bat leader, they were almost collectively killed. Seeing the look on Xueqi's face, Tua said, "Don't worry. The leader and the team leaders are here. Nothing will happen." The others also thought so. Last time, when the 5 hunting groups dug out the fire crystals and went back, they told the others about the vampire bats. Everyone was very afraid, but no one thought that the accident would happen again in the case of the leader and several senior totem warriors. After all, the members of the hunting group were basically beginner and middle-level totem warriors. Compared with the warriors in the advanced group and the senior totem warriors, they were much weaker. Even Ao and the 2 team leaders felt that they could fight it out if they worked together. Only Xueqi was not so optimistic. They waited for a while, but did not hear anything below. Ao and Dai, who went down to check, also came up. They did not have any other injuries. "I didn't see anything. Only some ferocious beast corpses," Ao said. "Ferocious beast corpses? They did not see them last time. Anyway, let's go down and see if there are any fire crystals," Dai said. "Tower, Gigu Wei." Ao pointed to 5 people. "Go in with me and Dai. Shen, you go with us. The rest of you will stay outside and listen to the whistle when the time comes." "Yes." The people Ao pointed to were all senior totem warriors. Xueqi, who could sense the fire crystals, naturally had to go down. He was the only intermediate totem warrior, so he was protected in the middle. Walking down along the straw rope, Xueqi felt more and more confused. "Something is wrong," Xueqi said. The others did not say anything, but Xueqi knew that they were listening. After carefully checking around and finding no other creatures, Xueqi said, "Last time we came here, the giant pit was not so deep." When his feet finally touched the ground, Xueqi checked around again. Still, he found nothing. The sound of breathing was still clear, but even Xueqi could only hear the rhythmic breathing sound. He could not judge the specific direction, whether it was far or near. The feeling of uneasiness was getting stronger. At this time, it was noon. In the forest outside, Yangguang was shining brightly. However, in the giant pit, it was as dark as night. The black miasma in the giant pit almost blocked the light from above. Fortunately, the people who came down had better eyesight than the others, so they could see the surrounding situation with the dim light. However, they could only see part of it, and could not see further. The thick miasma still affected their vision. The stink was not strong, but it made people feel dizzy. They did not know whether it was the smell of the miasma or something else. He stuffed a stalk of herb into his mouth and chewed on it. The bitter and refreshing taste stimulated his nerves, clearing up his somewhat dizzy mind. No wonder the chief did not allow Xueqi and the others to come down. Even intermediate totem warriors like Xueqi and the others could not stay awake all the time. While thinking, Gigu turned his head and saw Xueqi, who was carefully checking around. His idea was stuck. He was also an intermediate totem warrior, but he looked very sober. Compared with the last time he entered the bat cave, Xueqi's immunity to the miasma was much stronger this time. Even if the miasma here was thicker, he could still stand it. "There are great changes here," Xueqi lowered his voice and said. The last time they were here, the 5 hunting groups had left many holes because they were digging for fire crystals. Now there were also pits on the ground, but they were much bigger than those left by the last hunting group. Looking carefully, there were some deep claw marks beside those pits. It was easy to guess who had caused them. However, looking at those claw marks, if it was the bat leader, it had grown a lot. In the giant pit, there was a stinky smell. There were many corpses around. Some only had skeletons left, and some still had fur, but they looked very shriveled, as if all the water in their bodies had been sucked away. No matter the skeletons or those with fur, they were all large, ferocious beasts. Did it do it? Ao asked Xueqi in a low voice. Yes, it should be. The bat leader was most likely to be the culprit. However, they didn't know why the bat leader would come back here after taking its brothers to fight for territory. It seemed that it had stayed here for a long time. Judging from the skeletons, it must have been here for more than a year. How strong was the bat leader that could catch these large ferocious beasts as food? Everyone was on high alert. Then, where are the fire crystals? Xian, can you find them? Ao asked. This was the primary purpose of their trip. The others also pricked up their ears, waiting for Xueqi's reply. Yes, Xueqi said. Where are they? Ao suppressed his excitement and asked in a low voice. Right under your feet. Xueqi said doubtfully. There is one 10 steps to the right of Team Leader Ta, and there is one not far behind Team Leader Gigu. It was not like this before. So many. Ao immediately bent down, intending to dig with his knife. However, when he moved his feet, he felt that he had stepped on a hard block. He dug the soil with his knife and saw the crystal with a very familiar texture. Although he couldn't see clearly because of the light, Ao was sure that this was the fire crystal. Ao Ding held his breath and looked at the thumb-sized crystal under his feet. This was the biggest fire crystal he had ever dug up in his life. When he was young, he had dug it up once by chance. It was completely out of luck. Many people couldn't dig it up even once in their lives, but he had encountered it. But at that time, he had only dug up a very small piece. Even so, he had been excited for a long time. But now, looking at the crystal under his feet, Ao still couldn't believe it. So simple? Such a big piece of fire crystal was found by him? Even as the leader, Ao couldn't react for a while. The so-called digging, was this how he dug it up? No. Just as Ao picked up that piece of fire crystal, a strong sense of crisis suddenly struck him. Be careful! Ao and Xueqi almost shouted at the same time. However, the next moment, they found that their vision blurred, and they suddenly felt that their heads were about to explode. Their vision, hearing, and so on all disappeared at this moment. After a few seconds, they calmed down again, but everything around them seemed to have lost its sound. Ao Nang saw that Xueqi, who was not far away, was saying something with his mouth wide open. Dai, who was next to him, was holding the huge stone hammer, and his mouth was opening and closing. Everyone seemed to have lost their sense of hearing at this moment. They couldn't hear other people's voices or the sound of the outside world, but they could clearly hear their own heartbeats. Bang! Bang! Following his intuition, Ao looked in one direction. Over there, a black shadow was approaching them quickly. He could see the folded wing arms and powerful hind legs of the other side. The figure was tall, but it seemed to be extremely light. There was no vibration under its feet at all. When it came closer, Ao Nang saw its big open mouth, and its nose and throat were moving strangely. This should be the reason why they couldn't hear the sound. Bat leader! At this moment, the first thing that Ao thought of was not how to hide the fire crystal, nor how to fight against the fast-approaching big guy. Instead, he rushed to Xueqi, grabbed Xueqi's collar, and threw him to the place where the rattan grass was placed before. Here, they couldn't hear any sound. Ao was not sure whether the people above the giant pit could hear the movement in the giant pit. What he needed to do now was to let Xueqi stay away from the battlefield, and then unite with the other 6 people to fight against the big guy. Xueqi was thrown out of the battle circle by Ao. Without Ao Duo's instruction, the others were ready to fight. The 7 people were all experienced totem warriors, and they were all the leaders of the hunting team. Everyone knew what they were facing now. This was a more powerful ferocious beast than the ones they had encountered in the forest before. A top ferocious beast. They must work together and do their best to kill this ferocious beast in the shortest time. Dai, who was closest to the bat leader, took action before the others. Deep flame lines appeared on his thick arms, and his arms swelled up and became thicker. He held a stone hammer that was as tall as a man, but it seemed that he could not feel the weight of the stone hammer. He moved quickly and swung it toward the bat leader. When he swung it, Dai's arms had accumulated all the strength in a very short time, and he suddenly smashed it down. If there was no interference from the bat leader, they could still hear the whistling sound of the stone hammer, as if it would forcibly break the air. Visible ripples spread from the collision, and the surrounding poisonous miasma seemed to be forcibly squeezed out of that small area at that moment. There were no splashing stone chips, and no sound of impact. However, at that moment, everything seemed to be frozen. When the stone hammer hit, the bat leader raised its folded wing claws and blocked the thunderous blow with its wings as a shield. While Dai Chao attacked the bat leader, the others also took action. Gigu's knife was directly bitten by the bat leader. The stone knife, which was bitten by the bat leader's teeth, seemed to be nailed there. No matter how hard Gigu tried, he could not pull it out. Ta Wei and the others, who were attacking at the same time, were directly hit by the bat leader's wings before they could get close. Dai, who had swung the hammer twice, was hit on the wall of the pit, and his whole body was embedded in the wall. If it were not for his strong body, he would have been directly smashed into a meat patty. Ao, who had thrown Xiao out, went to the side, and the totem power in his body was instantly mobilized to the peak state. With a twist of his wrist, the spear in his hand rotated at a high speed, and the flowing air became sharp, tearing the surrounding poisonous miasma, and piercing directly toward the bat leader's neck. However, the long spear in Ao's hand did not touch the side neck of the bat leader. Instead, it was pinched by the strange-looking wing claw. It used an even more powerful force to stop the swift and violent attack. Ao only felt that the spear in his hand was pulled out by a more powerful force, and the hand holding the stone spear was extremely painful, as if it had been pierced by thousands of hot thorns. Chapter 218. 7 senior totem warriors, who were almost the most powerful people in the Yanjiao tribe, attacked with all their strength. However, after a short fight, all of them collapsed. It was completely one-sided. What Xiao Xian was worried about happened. This was indeed the bat leader from before. However, compared to the time when it had transformed and broken out of its shell, it had become much stronger. If it had just transformed, Ao and the other 6 people would have been able to fight it. However, it was different now. No one had expected that such a ferocious beast could grow so fast. Was it just a ferocious beast? No, it was more than that. Before they came Ao Gue He, and the others thought that it was just a slightly more powerful beast. They did not expect that this beast had already started to move towards the king level. Moreover, it had taken quite a big step. Even if there were 10 or 100 senior totem warriors like Ao, they would not dare to confront the king beast. Speaking of the king beast, the people in the tribe would even hold a kind of awe. For Xiao Xian, who had seen the king-level beast at a close distance, he clearly knew what kind of level it was. There was no way to resist it. Now the bat leader had taken a big step toward the king beast, much faster than Xiao Xian had expected. If it were not related to the fire crystals, even Ao would choose to stay away from such a ferocious beast instead of confronting it head-on. However, the fire crystals were related to their return to the old land. They could not give it up easily. Ao was blocked, and the spearhead had been broken by the wing claw. After Ao, 2 more warriors were directly slapped to the ground before they could get close, and their heads hit the ground heavily. Fortunately, there was a layer of soft mud at the bottom of the pit. Otherwise, they would have hit the hard rock directly. Even so, they were still injured. Blood flowed down from the wounds on their heads. Coupled with the sound wave attack that they could not hear, they suddenly felt as if their brains were about to explode. It was as if the entire world had become chaotic and was spinning. Blood flowed into their eyes, blurring their vision. Before Dai, who had just struggled out of the pit wall, the black wings flapped over like lightning, fanning Dai into the pit wall again. This time, Dai was embedded deeper. Ta and Wei's situation wasn't good either. Every time they thought they were one step away from success, they would be beaten back. Gigu looked at the developed incisors that were biting his stone knife. He looked up and met the pair of colorless but murderous eyes. At such a distance, even if he immediately released the handle of the stone knife, Gigu had no confidence in successfully avoiding this big guy whose strength completely suppressed them. Since he couldn't avoid it, he could only brace himself and face it. His hand that was holding the handle of the knife exerted force, and he jumped up with the help of the force. His other hand pulled out a smaller stone knife from behind his waist, and with the speed of lightning, he stabbed the bat leader's rapidly twitching nose. However, the imagined situation of the knife piercing into the bat's nose did not happen. Gigu, who jumped into the air, was caught by a wing claw. On the wing claw, the sharp claw made a long cut on Gigu's abdomen. If it had been deeper, it might have been directly cut open. Gigu avoided the vital parts just now, but the situation at the moment was not optimistic. Probably Gigu's behavior completely irritated the bat leader. Gigu only felt a sharp pain in his body. Although he couldn't hear the surrounding sounds, at the moment, he could clearly hear a series of bone-breaking sounds coming from inside his body. The stone knife that was bitten by the bat leader's incisors was directly crushed. As for Gigu, who dared to attack its nose, it didn't intend to let him go. The wing claw firmly grasped the little prey. It intended to use its sharp teeth to suck the little blood of the little prey, and then bite the bones of the prey and chew it. Looking at the teeth in the vampire bat's open mouth, Gigu felt that the blood in his body instantly dropped to the freezing point, and even the pain of the broken bones in his body faded away. Gigu thought that he was going to die, and that he would never be able to lead a team to hunt in the future. When encountering such a level of ferocious beast, no one could escape. However, those knife-like teeth stopped just as they were about to touch him. The surrounding sounds seemed to come back again. The feeling that his head was about to explode gradually disappeared. At this moment, whether it was the people who were preparing to attack, the people who were beaten without any power to fight back, or the people who were almost eaten by the wing claw, they all found the bat leader's strange behavior. Its attention moved away from Gigu, moved a little, and then looked down. At its feet, a man stood. After seeing the man standing at the feet of the bat leader, Ao almost spat out blood. Didn't they throw this guy out? Shouldn't he climb out of the giant pit along the grass vines? Why did he appear here again? The shaman said that even if they couldn't bring back the fire crystals, they must bring Xiaoxian back safely. Safe and sound. But, what about the situation now? Xian, get out of the way. Xian. Ao and Ta wanted to take this opportunity to attack and let Xiaoxian escape. Stop. Xiaoxian shouted in a hurry. Seeing Ao and the others stop what they were doing, Xiaoxian looked up at the bat leader who was staring at him. Accompanied by the rhythmic sound of airflow, a black mist was exhaled from its mouth. Its wing claw moved and threw away the little prey that it was holding. It had no interest in that little prey now. If Ao and others could see the invisible energy, they would find that a trace of red energy was released from the fire crystal in Xiaoxian's hand. Part of the released energy was absorbed by Xiaoxian, and the other part floated into the body of the bat leader in front of him. Seeing that the bat leader was staring at him and no longer paying attention to others, Xiaoxian said, "Chief, you go up first." "Impossible. Xian, leave quickly." "Chief, before we came," the shaman said, Xiaoxian said. The shaman said that if there was a special situation, Xiaoxian should be the first and listen to Xiaoxian. Even if the chief joined them now, at this time, they had to think about the shaman's words. Looking at Xiaoxian standing there and the bat leader, Ao didn't know what to do. What the hell was going on? For a time, everyone stood there and no longer attacked the bat leader, but they also maintained a high degree of vigilance. As long as it moved, they would attack again. Even if such an attack might not cause much harm to it, it could still divert its attention and delay time. Patter. The bat leader's wings moved. Ao and the others immediately tensed up and looked over there, only to find that the bat leader just retracted its wings, folded them, and continued to stand there. It meant that it didn't intend to attack for the time being. Xiaoxian was relieved. Sure enough, he made the right bet. Just like last time, the bat leader was very interested in the energy of the fire crystal, which was one of the reasons why he was willing to take the risk. But just now, he couldn't tell others at all, and the battle began. If the bat leader could be quiet, everything would be easy. Time passed little by little. The bat leader didn't move, and Ao and others didn't leave. After checking everyone's injuries, Ao asked Ta and Wei to take Gigu, who was the most seriously injured, and another person out of the giant pit. He would continue to watch here. Chapter 219. Outside the giant pit, Kiki and the others were guarding outside. Caesar wanted to go up the mountain several times, but he was stopped. He could only walk around anxiously. They didn't hear any sound, but they could feel a little vibration, which was very strange. Several people also wanted to go down to see the situation, but before that, the leader had ordered them to wait for the whistle. They didn't hear the leader's whistle until now, so they couldn't act rashly. The sun had already set. What should we do? Kiki looked at Tua. Tua shook his head. As time went by, everyone became more and more uneasy. Hey, someone is coming up. The person guarding the edge of the giant pit shouted. It's team leader Ta. And Wei. The people who had been waiting outside the giant pit immediately went over. Ta and Wei found a place to put the two seriously injured people down the mountain and let them drink some medicine. They also needed a place without miasma to have a good rest, which would help them recover. Wei, you stay here first. I'll go down and have a look. After a pause, Ta said to the others, step back, don't get too close to the pit, and don't go down. After a short fight, Ta also knew the gap between them and the bat leader. That was not an ordinary ferocious beast. Even if the two advance groups all fought together, they might not be able to hurt the bat leader much. Instead, they might all be killed. In the giant pit, Xiao Xian was still urging the power in his body to release the energy of the fire crystal in his hand. Fortunately, Xiao Xian had been absorbing the energy of the fire crystal, so he was not too tired. However, there was a limit to everyone's absorption of the fire crystal. Just like the warriors who went to the fire pit to absorb the energy of the fire crystal, there was a limit to their improvement. It was impossible for a newly awakened junior totem warrior to reach the senior level. If they overestimated themselves and were too greedy, they might explode and die because they couldn't control the totem power in their body. Therefore, after feeling the limit, Xiao Xian stopped absorbing. It would not be too late to absorb when he was tired. However, the big guy in front of him was still absorbing the red energy lines released from the fire crystal. If Ao could see those energy lines, he would be shocked. A ferocious beast could actually absorb the energy of the fire crystal. It's just that they never knew. The light from above was getting dimmer and dimmer. The thick miasma had already blocked most of the light, and now it was even dimmer. Ao did not know what would happen if he waited any longer. They did not like the dark night, which made them feel even more uneasy. Looking at the man and the bat who were still standing there, Ao cautiously moved towards Xiao Xian. When Ao was only 2 steps away from Xiao Xian, the bat leader suddenly looked at Ao. One of its wings moved, but it did not open. It was more like a warning. A drop of cold sweat slid down from Ao's forehead. He even breathed carefully. He could feel the warm black mist coming out of the bat's mouth and nostrils. Xiao Xian gestured to Ao with his other hand, which was facing away from the bat, to tell Ao not to worry and not to come closer. Looking at the bat leader's wing claw, Ao decided to retreat first. Otherwise, if he angered the bat leader, Xiao Xian, him, and the other people around would not be able to escape. When he was about to retreat, Ao could not help but glance at Xiao Xian's arm, which was reaching out to the bat leader. He wanted to see what Xiao Xian was holding in his hand. The light was very dim. Because Ao was closer and had good eyesight, even if he could not see the color of the thing in Xiao Xian's hand, he could roughly judge what it was. Fire crystal. When he took a closer look, he found that the color of the fire crystal had become much lighter. The color of the fire crystal would only become lighter in one case. Ao had seen the fire crystal become lighter in the fire pit many times. But now, it was the first time in his life that he saw the color of the fire crystal become lighter outside the fire pit. What did Shen do? He could release the energy of the fire crystal. No wonder the shaman had such an attitude towards Xiao Xian. Ao suppressed the shock in his heart. After thinking for a while, he stared at the bat leader and stepped back. After taking 2 steps back, he stepped on something. Ao used his toes to push the layer of soft soil above the ground, and saw a piece of fire crystal about the same size as the one he had just picked up. The previous one, because of the sudden appearance of the bat leader, had fallen and he did not know where it had fallen. He did not expect to pick up another one now. Ao used his toes to pick up the fire crystal, and the crystal on the ground was lifted up. When he was about to pick up the fire crystal with his hand, Ao suddenly felt a strong evil spirit coming towards him. A black shadow broke through the poisonous miasma and quietly came to him. If it were not for Ao's rich experience and intuition, he would not even know how he died. After the previous fight, Ao did not dare to take it directly. He instantly exerted strength under his feet, and the soft soil was shaken up. Ao used the strength under his feet to dodge the attack, which was like a huge blade. He barely avoided the attack, but before Ao landed on the ground, the sharp wing claws had come from above and almost nailed Ao there in the next moment. Fast. Too fast. Ao's usual spear had been destroyed. At this moment, he could only pull out a stone knife and raise it to block the claw. He knew that this bat leader could easily destroy his long spear and Xueqi saber. He might not be able to withstand the next blow, but he had to do it even if he couldn't. Ao also knew that the moment his feet touched the ground, the wing claws would be nailed directly on the knife, even over the stone knife and nailed on him. But there was no way to retreat. When the wing claws were nailed down, an arm was raised and blocked between the wing claws and Ao. The wing claws, which were about to be nailed with a fierce attack, suddenly stopped, as if the pause button had been pressed. Ao's feet landed on the ground, but he did not run away. He still maintained the posture of holding the knife, but looked at Xueqi in front of him. The bat leader, after pausing for a few seconds, took back its wing claws. As for the piece of fire crystal that Ao had just found, it was swept away by the bat leader's wing before he grabbed it. He did not know where it went. In fact, Xueqi was not confident that he could stop the bat leader who suddenly went crazy. But he could not watch it go mad at Ao, so he could only try. It was really useful. The bat leader really cared about the fire crystal very much. There were many fire crystals here, but those dug out showed no sign of being absorbed. There was only one reason for this situation. It could not absorb the energy in the fire crystal. It could perceive where the fire crystal was. The sinkhole was also its masterpiece. That was to say, the fire crystals on the ground were probably dug out by the bat leader. It dug out some fire crystals, but it could not get the energy of the fire crystals. Xueqi speculated that it should swallow the fire crystals like eating prey. However, fire crystals were fire crystals after all. Even such a ferocious beast that was moving towards becoming a king beast could not digest them. It would poop out the same way it ate it. The ground in the sinkhole was covered with a layer of rotten things. Among them, there were many substances that looked like mud, but in fact, they were piled up by the bat leader's feces. The piece of fire crystal under Ao's feet was excreted by the bat leader. The soft mud was actually its feces. Ao, who had just escaped, had not yet calmed down. He heard the movement of the grass vines and saw Ta coming down from above. Ao waved his hand, indicating that they should not come over. If the bat leader went mad again, Xueqi might not be able to stop it again. Ao had roughly guessed what Xueqi was doing, but he could not believe it because of the limited knowledge he had. Even so, he did not want more people to know Xueqi's special secret. The shaman must know that Xueqi was special, but he had not said it. Naturally, he had his own considerations. 3 hours later, it was getting late. The moonlight outside could not shine to the bottom of the sinkhole. It was almost blocked by the miasma. Crack! A slight sound came from Xueqi's hand. The fire crystal, which could not be cut by a sharp blade made of high-quality stone, cracked. This also meant that the energy within the fire crystal was almost depleted. Xueqi turned his wrist and let the fragment in his hand fall to the ground. He told the bat leader in front of him that this one had been absorbed. At the same time, Xueqi thought in his heart, "Please don't find another one from the feces. Let me continue." The bat leader used its wings to push the fragments of the fire crystal on the ground, which had become inconspicuous. No one knew what it was thinking. After looking at it for a while, it stretched its wings and flew up. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared in front of Xueqi and others. When the bat leader left, Xueqi felt that the air here seemed to be fresher. The extremely dangerous sense of oppression from the bat leader was also much less. "It's gone." Ta came over and said. He held a piece of fire crystal in his hand and handed it to Ao. "I just picked it up over there." He wanted to ask for credit from his father, but before Ta finished his words, Ao grabbed the fire crystal from Ta's hand and threw it far away. "Ta, let's not think about the fire crystals here," Ao said. "Why?" Ta was anxious. Those were pieces of fire crystals. "The bat leader knows what's going on. It won't let us take any piece from here. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will hunt us down. If it were just some ferocious beasts, even if they couldn't defeat them, Ao would take the risk to dig out all the fire crystals here. However, this bat was developing in the direction of a king beast. It could be regarded as a half-king beast. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been defeated so easily. If they were hunted down by such a guy, it would be a disaster. Ao didn't dare to take this risk. Many ferocious beasts in the forest were much smarter than people expected. "I agree with the chief." Xueqi moved his sore arms and said, "Every piece of fire crystal here has the smell of that bat leader. Even if we take them back to the tribe, we will be tracked down." Ta was silent. He understood the reason, but he was unwilling to accept it. Fight. They couldn't beat it. Steal? They couldn't steal. So many fire crystals were almost at their fingertips, but they couldn't take them. Aggrieved. Chapter 220. Whether it was Ta, the team leader of the hunting team, or Ao, the chief of the tribe, they both knew how precious the fire crystals were. That was why they felt so conflicted. Their faces were twisted, and they resisted the temptation of the fire crystals. Ao suppressed all the emotions in his heart and said, "Let's go up first." Since the chief had spoken, the others had to do it even if they were unwilling. When they came out of the giant pit, the two moons in the night sky cast light on them, so that they could see the surrounding situation. Although the moonlight allowed them to see the objects around them, they were still used to lighting their torches. The chief is out. Team leader Tar is out too. Xian, are you all right? Those who were guarding outside the giant pit swarmed up. Among the 8 people who entered the giant pit, 7 were senior totem warriors, and 1 was a middle-level totem warrior. The first 7 were all injured, but the latter was the only one who was not injured. Some people attributed it to the protection of the 7 senior totem warriors, while others were confused. How could the 7 of them protect others when they were injured like this? Even if they were confused, they did not dare to ask when they saw the chief and team leaders' faces. It seems that things are not going well. Xueqi whispered to Tuo. 8 people went down, 7 were injured, and none of them brought out a piece of fire crystal. Everyone knew that things were not going well. There were many people who came this time, and they gathered around the giant pit. Fortunately, there was poisonous miasma everywhere, so other creatures did not dare to come here. Except for the vampire bats, no other creatures would appear. Therefore, from dusk to now, no dangerous ferocious beasts had come. The most dangerous one was not in the pit now. It's already night. Shall we find a cave to rest? But the mountain is full of poisonous miasma. We have to go down the mountain. Ta was talking when he found that Xian suddenly stopped and stood there. No one knew what he was thinking. Xian? Xian raised his head and saw that the people around were looking at him with doubts. He shook his head to show that he was fine, but he just thought of something. What did you think of? Ao asked. Xian looked at the foot of the mountain and then looked at the sinkhole at the top of the mountain. He said, I was thinking, if we can't dig from the sinkhole, can we start digging from the foot of the mountain? What do you mean? Tower was confused at first, but then his eyes lit up. Dig a hole. Just like the wild beasts in the forest who were good at digging holes, they could dig a long way from one place. Even if they couldn't dig at the top of the mountain, they could still dig a hole at the bottom of the mountain. If this was really a fire crystal mine, there must be some fire crystals that had not been dug out by the bat leader. That's right. We can dig holes. The leaders and team leaders, who had not wanted to give up until now, felt that this idea was feasible. Ao led his men down the mountain and found a suitable place. Let's start digging from here. This place was not covered by the poisonous miasma, so it was not within the range that the bat leader would pay attention to. They could dig without worry. Divide into 2 groups. Ta and Gigu, you lead your own team and take turns to dig and rest. Ao assigned the tasks. Yes. With hope, Ta and Gigu calmed down. Now they were full of energy and didn't care about their injuries. They just wanted to dig a hole that extended to the foot of the mountain and the sinkhole as soon as possible. Let Caesar help. He is good at digging holes. Xian said. Caesar's strength and claws were superior. Soon, he dug a vertical pit at the place chosen by Ao. Then, he dug from the pit toward the direction of the sinkhole. While Caesar was digging in that direction, the others were also tamping down the sides of the pit that they had dug in the beginning and building steps. The stone and soil that Caesar dug out also needed to be transported out. Xian, you take a rest first. They are enough here. Ao said to Xian. Although Xian was the only one among the 8 people who didn't seem to have any trauma, Ao felt that Xian might consume more energy than them. It also took a lot of physical strength to draw out the energy in the fire crystal. Looking at the progress of Caesar, Xian didn't refuse. Well, I will take a nap. Call me if you need me. Well, don't worry. Go to sleep. The bat leader should be looking for food. It won't come back for a while. We are not in its territory now, so it should be okay. Ao said. Xian really felt sleepy. He went to the side, leaned against the wall of the pit and closed his eyes. He planned to rest for a while, but when he opened his eyes again, the sky was already bright. He didn't know if it was because he had consumed too much energy yesterday. This night, Xueqi slept very soundly. All the movements around him seemed to be isolated. This sleep also made all the fatigue and muscle pain disappear. He felt very comfortable all over. Yang Guang's light shone into his pupils through the slits of his eyes. Xueqi couldn't help but squint. He planned to rest for a while and then open his eyes again. But the next moment, he felt that something was wrong. It was strangely quiet around him. There was no sound of digging, no discussion, no sound of walking. Crackle! The sound of the firewood burning in the bonfire was very clear in the forest this morning. The surrounding area was filled with the smell of burnt meat. But it was not that there was no one here. Everyone was here, including Caesar and Cha-Cha. No one was missing. Xueqi could feel it. But none of them made a sound. But from their breathing, he could hear that their hearts were not calm. They were even extremely nervous. The frequency of their breathing seemed to be deliberate. It was not casual, and they didn't dare to be casual. It was as if they were facing a great enemy. As if they were facing a great enemy. Xueqi didn't care whether it was dazzling or not. He opened his eyes. Sensing something, Zhang Xian turned his head around, and the first thing he saw was a bizarrely large nose. Xueqi. Damn you! Xueqi suddenly woke up. The bat leader was silently hanging upside down on the wall of the pit that had just been dug. It hung there steadily as if it was weightless. The bat's head was right next to Xueqi. Around them, Cha-Cha, who was standing on the edge of the pit, felt the hair on his neck stand up. Caesar wasn't much better. He bared his teeth and his whole body was tense. He looked like he was going to pounce over in the next moment. The people who were digging the hole, barbecuing the meat, and drinking water all stopped what they were doing. The people who were barbecuing the meat had already thrown away the meat skewers on the wooden sticks. They didn't even care that the meat was burnt. The people who were drinking water had already thrown the kettle aside, letting the clear water flow out of the kettle. Everyone was holding stone picks, knives, axes, and so on in their hands, nervously looking at the creature that had appeared here without any warning. The reason why they hadn't taken any action was that their leader, Ao, had signaled them not to act rashly. Only God knew how Ao's heart had trembled when he found that the bat leader had appeared here. He just drank some water. When he turned his head, he found that the bat leader had appeared there silently. He was so scared that he threw away the kettle. Ta Gigu Dai Wei. Every one of them who had been beaten by the bat leader didn't react better than Ao when they saw this scene. Their hair almost stood up together with the hair on their backs. At this moment, everyone's expression was almost frozen. The slightly twitching muscles on their faces and the sweat coming out from their foreheads and arms all showed their nervousness. The situation was so tense that it was on the verge of breaking out. Chapter 221. Xueqi stared at the bat leader hanging upside down next to him. After a few seconds of silence, he stood up. With Xueqi's movement, the stagnant atmosphere became more tense. The surrounding air seemed to be frozen, making it difficult to breathe. Everyone was worried that the bat leader hanging upside down there would suddenly launch an attack. It was not the ferocious beasts that they had hunted before. On the contrary, in front of it, everyone was prey. After Xueqi stood up, the bat leader's head also twisted a little with Xueqi's movement. It seemed that it did not notice the tense atmosphere around and was very calm. Suddenly seeing this guy, Xueqi was a little surprised. But now thinking about it, he was not too surprised. He was just startled when he just woke up. Anyone who opened their eyes and saw this scene would be frightened. It also wanted the fire crystals. However, the one that Xueqi always carried with him was gone. Now there was no one in his pocket. If the bat leader went crazy here, Xueqi could not stop it. Just as he was thinking about it, the bat leader moved. It flapped its wings and flew into the air from the upside-down position. The airflow caused by the flapping of its wings made the fire in the bonfire jump. Everyone's tense nerves were pulled tighter again, as if they would collapse in the next moment. However, the people nervously preparing for the battle, as well as Cha-Cha standing beside the pit and Caesar in an attacking posture, did not make the bat leader do anything. It did not even look at the people around it. With a flap of its wings, a black shadow flashed, like a sudden lightning, flashing and disappearing. At the same time, Xueqi, who had been standing there, also disappeared. Cha-Cha shouted and chased after it, followed by Caesar. "You wait here. I'll go and have a look. Leaving these words, Leader Ao also went to the giant pit. In yesterday's battle, among the 7 senior totem warriors who fell into the pit, Ao's injury was the lightest. Gigu and Dai's injuries were not good for them to fight again. It was futile to go there, and it would only increase the casualties. After all, they were not at the same level, and the strength gap was too big. When Ao rushed to the giant pit, Xiaoxian had been taken to the giant pit again. Although the bat leader had controlled its strength, its 2 hind claws still pierced Xiaoxian's animal skin coat. However, because he was wearing the insect skin caught in the ice field near the Eagle Mountain, his shoulder was not scratched, but it was not much better. Even if his bones were not broken and his skin did not bleed, he still felt a burning pain. To him. Flying to the bottom of the pit, the bat's claws loosened, and Xiaoxian fell forward due to inertia. If he had not reacted fast enough and stabilized himself, he would have fallen on the ground covered with humus and bat feces. It seemed that the bat leader knew that Xiaoxian had no fire crystals, so after it caught Xiaoxian, it walked around for a while, and then moved its folded wing claws to dig out a piece of fire crystal from the ground, and threw it to Xiaoxian. The fire crystal was thrown like a bullet. Xiaoxian did not directly catch it with his hands, but turned sideways to avoid it. If he caught it with his bare hands, not to mention whether his palms would be scratched, his wrist bones would probably be broken. In addition to the fire crystal, there were also clouds of humus and bat feces thrown out by the bat leader's claws. Xiaoxian also avoided them. After the fire crystal was shot into the wall of the pit, Xiaoxian went to dig it out. The bat leader seemed to be very angry that Xiaoxian avoided it. Black poisonous miasma was sprayed out from its nostrils and mouth, and the sound of the airflow was sharper than before. Xiaoxian looked at the fire crystal in his hand, which was about the same size as the one he carried with him yesterday. The difference was that this fire crystal had not been consumed at all, while the one he carried with him yesterday had been used a lot, so it could be consumed in half a day. Half a day was definitely not enough for this fire crystal. Even if his efficiency had improved a lot, he could not consume this fire crystal in such a short time. It could not be finished before nightfall. Xiaoxian thought. The voices of Cha-Cha and Caesar came from above the giant pit. They had arrived. This bat leader could break Cha-Cha's neck like a chicken, and Caesar was not much better. Before the bat leader took action, Xiaoxian bent his fingers and put them in his mouth, blowing a whistle that both Caesar and Cha-Cha knew, indicating that they should not come over and that he was fine. Listening to the movements above, and confirming that Caesar and Cha-Cha had not come down, Xiaoxian immediately began to stimulate the power in his body, making the fire crystal burn. In the special vision, Xiaoxian could see that on the fire crystal in his hand, there were traces of red lines. Some of the red lines came to him, and the other went to the bat leader. The bat leader, which was originally more than 10 meters away from Xiaoxian, felt the traces of energy, and came closer. Standing in front of such a semi-king level beast, Xiaoxian felt great pressure. Looking around at the bottom of the giant pit, there was still some chaos, and all kinds of dirt could be seen everywhere. The only difference was that there was an extra body of a woolly mammoth. This should be the food brought back by the bat leader last night. It was hard to imagine how it transported the mammoth, which was several times larger than itself, here. In his impression, the mammoth's majestic and mighty body was now shriveled. It was casually thrown there, and the protruding bones were very obvious. In comparison, the 2 large tusks that curved forward in a spiral shape were more attractive. However, the bat leader was not interested in these tusks, bones and so on. All the corpses were just dried up, and the bones and teeth were still there. When Ao arrived at the giant pit, Cha-Cha and Caesar were wandering around the giant pit, and did not go down. He slid to the bottom of the giant pit along the place where he put down the grass vines yesterday, and saw the same situation as yesterday. Knowing that Xiaoxian was not hurt, Ao Xian was relieved. He felt a little helpless. After such a scare early in the morning, he still hadn't recovered from the shock. Xiaoxian also saw Ao at the bottom of the pit, and made a gesture, indicating that he was fine. Since Xiaoxian could perceive Ao's movement, the bat leader could naturally. However, it did not care at all, and did not take Ao seriously. At the moment, it was just concentrating on absorbing the energy from the fire crystal. But if Ao took away a piece of fire crystal here, it would not be so calm, and would kill directly. Ao would not take the fire crystal. After making sure that Xiaoxian was okay, he stayed aside and watched, in case of any accident. After a while, Ta also came down, because he saw that Caesar, Cha-Cha and Ao did not go back, so he came to inquire. You go back first, let the others continue, and I will keep an eye here. Ao lowered his voice and said to Ta. He looked at Xiao Xian, then at his own father. Ta nodded and passed Ao a spear. You be careful too. As Xiao Xian expected, from morning until night, the fire crystal in his hand cracked with a cob sound. Seeing the cracked fire crystal, the bat leader did not stay here any longer. It flapped its wings and flew out of the giant pit to look for food. Xiao Xian breathed a long sigh of relief, and quickly left the giant pit with Ao, who was guarding beside him. Xiao Xian was fine, because he had the fire crystal to replenish his physical strength, but Ao could not. Even if he brought the herbs, he was a little dispirited because of the poisonous miasma in the giant pit. He felt better after leaving the giant pit. Xiao Xian did not eat anything since morning, so he was mentally tired and his stomach was empty, which made Xiao Xian look no better than Ao. Back to the place where the hole was dug, Xiao Xian ate several pieces of meat, and then fell asleep tiredly. The next day, as usual. But this time before Xiao Xian woke up, the bat leader directly grabbed Xiao Xian and took him away. Just like the day before, Ao went over to guard. On the other side, Tar and Gigu led people to hurry up with the work. They thought that they should dig the hole as soon as possible and leave after digging out the fire crystals. On the third day, before the bat leader took Xiao Xian away, someone was too nervous and triggered the traps set around the hole. The traps were originally set to guard against the ferocious beasts that came out to look for food at night, but now, it became a thunder drum that shocked everyone. The stone arrowhead was shot in the direction of the bat leader. With a clang, it hit the bat leader's wings, as if it hit hard metal. The stone arrowhead fell to the ground, but the bat's wings were not hurt at all. However, the situation was getting more and more tense. Being stabbed like this was not a big deal for the bat leader, but it could be regarded as a provocation. It was a little angry, but it did not directly attack the people around it. Instead, it screamed towards the hole dug by the people, and the result of 2 days' work collapsed. Ao and the two team leaders saw the collapsed hole, and their faces turned green. Ao also went over to look around the collapsed hole. It was not convenient to continue digging here, and they had to find another place. How annoying! However, even if they were so angry that they had internal bleeding, they could do nothing about it. They could not beat it, could not scold it, and could not provoke it. They had to endure whatever they did. After all, the bat leader was strong. Fortunately, the bat leader did not intend to attack them directly. If such a ferocious beast at the half-king level went to the tribe, they would not be able to cry even if they wanted to. Fortunately, there were fire seeds in the tribe. Where there were fire seeds, these ferocious beasts would always be afraid of them. However, after this incident, how could they really get rid of the half-king level bat leader? This was Ao's worry. Let's do this first. Let's get the fire crystals first. I think that although the bat leader needs the fire crystals, it has a limit like the totem warriors. It will not absorb the fire crystals endlessly, but it has not reached that limit yet. Xiao Xian said. That's the only way. Xian, thank you for your hard work. Ao said with guilt. Before he came, he told the shaman that he would protect Xiao Xian, but now? It's okay. Anyway, it didn't hurt me. It just wanted to absorb the fire crystals. Moreover, I think that if we take good care of it, it may be good for us in the future. Xiao Xian said. Ao knew that Xiao Xian was comforting him. He pulled up the corners of his mouth, but he still could not smile. King-level beasts were not like other ferocious beasts. They were arrogant and difficult to get along with. It was impossible for them to be as obedient as the beasts and ferocious beasts raised by the tribe. If they were careless and angered it, the consequences would be unimaginable. For the fire crystals, they had to endure it. Chapter 222. Because of the bat leader's attack, the hole they had dug was ruined and they had to start from scratch. While they were digging the hole again, Ao sent someone back to the tribe and told the shaman about what had happened here. Ao did not let anyone pass on the details of Xiao Xian, the fire crystal and the half-king level bat leader. Instead, he peeled off a piece of animal skin and wrote on it. He wrote down what had happened here in detail, tied it with a straw rope, and asked the people of the Hui tribe to bring it to the shaman. He needed to ask the shaman about some things before he could make a decision. Ao was not worried that the people of the Hui tribe would secretly open the animal skin roll and read what was written inside. Without permission, the people of the Hui tribe would not read it at will. Ao still had this confidence and also trusted the people of the Hui tribe. When the warriors of the Hui tribe came back, they also brought the shaman's reply. Ao went to a place where no one was around, opened the animal skin roll and read the content written by the shaman. He thought that the shaman would write a lot of things, telling them how to deal with a half-king level bat leader. Unexpectedly, after opening the animal skin roll, Ao only saw one sentence. Ask Xian. If he did not know that the shaman had chosen Gue Zhe to take over, Ao would have thought that the successor chosen by the shaman was Xiao Xian. Could it be that the shaman wanted Xian to be the next chief? Ao could not help thinking. No, it should not be. With Ao's understanding of the shaman, he knew that if the shaman wanted to cultivate Xiao Xian to be the chief, it would not be like this. Ao shook his head. Since he could not guess the purpose of the shaman, Ao did not think more. At this time, it was better to focus on the things at hand. Days passed, and the hole they dug again had reached the foot of the mountain. It would take them 2 or 3 more days to reach the bottom of the giant pit. At that time, they would know whether there were fire crystals under the giant pit, as Xiao Xian said. During this time, everyone was less afraid of the bat leader because it had not appeared here for several days. Xiao Xian would take the initiative to go to the sinkhole early in the morning and did not need it to come again. 10 days later, Xiao Xian consumed the fire crystals faster and faster. Using his special vision, he could see that the red energy lines coming out of the fire crystals were much denser than before. This also meant that the energy of the fire crystals was coming out faster. Sometimes, Xiao Xian was able to return to the foot of the mountain before sunset and meet up with the others. Caesar was also called over by Xiao Xian to help the others dig the hole. During this time in the sinkhole, Xiao Xian slowly figured out the bottom line of this bat leader. As long as he didn't take away the fire crystals from the crater, it wouldn't get angry. During the time when Xiao Xian was consuming the fire crystals, he also cut off the 2 big tusks of the woolly mammoth and the giant horns of several giant deer, but it ignored him. This day, when the fire crystals were consumed, the bat leader didn't fly away to look for food. Before Xiao Xian left, it flapped its wings and drove Xiao Xian out of the giant pit. Before leaving the giant pit, Xiao Xian saw that more dense black fog was coming out of its mouth and nostrils. In the giant pit, from the bottom, because of the deeper black fog, it gradually became as black as ink. At this time, even if Ao went in with the herbs, he couldn't bear it. The black fog came out from the top of the giant pit and spread from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. Even some of the poisonous grasses and herbs with high poison resistance living on the mountain died. This mountain is completely impossible to enter. Ao looked at the black spreading mountain and said, "Fortunately, we dug a hole from here." Ta was very emotional. The place where they dug the hole was not surrounded by the black fog. After digging the hole, they didn't need to touch the black fog and poisonous miasma on the surface of the mountain. Even if the poisonous miasma had penetrated into the soil and mountain stones, not much of it reached the hole, so everyone could bear it. "Is it going to transform again?" Gigu asked. "Very likely," Ao said. "King Beast." The bat leader was one step closer to becoming a king beast. "Why don't we take this opportunity to?" Ta held the knife in his hand and made a chopping gesture. Ao, Gigu, and Dai raised their heads and looked at Ta as if he was an idiot. The expression on Ta's face froze, and he probably realized how stupid he had just said. Not to mention whether they could bear the black fog and go in. When the leaders of the 5 hunting groups met the bat leader in the bat cave, it hadn't transformed yet, but it could move freely with its shell. Mai and the others couldn't find its trace at all, which showed the gap in strength. Now, the bat leader had been promoted to a higher level, not to mention it. Even if it was not a king beast, it had taken a big step toward becoming one. Slaughter? How difficult it was. If they were not careful, they would be slaughtered. Thinking about it made their necks cold. They were about to return to the old land. Ao didn't want to take this risk, and he didn't dare to take it. The shaman said that they would face more people and more powerful warriors in the future. Not ferocious beasts, let alone king beasts. But if we can't kill it, when it wakes up, it will be more powerful. Will it chase us to the tribe? Dai was worried. With the fire seed, it should not. Ao said. Their trust in the fire seed was stronger than anything else. If there were ferocious beasts attacking them, and the people in the tribe couldn't resist, the shaman could drive them away with the help of the fire seed. Dai was still worried. If we go back to the old land, it will be better. But if we don't go back, it will come out to hunt. Won't it pose a threat to the hunting group and slaughter the warriors? No. Xiao said, as long as we don't provoke it, it won't slaughter the hunting warriors. Why? Gigu was a little confused about Xiao's answer. Why was Xiao so sure? Intuition. Xiao said. Xiao had a secret. Gigu and Ta all knew it, and Ao also knew it, but he didn't want to tell them. So, the question ended here. Didn't you see the chief's warning eyes? When they were talking here, there came a voice of ecstasy from the cave. It was Keek's loud voice. Boss, Chief. Kiki rushed out of the cave, and the smile on his face squeezed his eyes. Ow. Dug it out. Fire crystal. There is a fire crystal. Really? Let me see. Ao couldn't sit still and bounced up from the ground like a spring. Kiki held a small piece of fire crystal in his hand. It was only the size of the fingernail of the little finger, but it was undoubtedly a fire crystal. There were some mud and stone chips on the fire crystal, which meant it had just been dug out. Ao carefully took the small piece of fire crystal, put it in the palm of his hand, and wiped off the dust on the surface. Under Yongguang's hand, the fiery red color seemed to burn everything it touched. It wasn't like the humus and bat feces in the giant pit. This one didn't have the smell of bats, so it was regarded as an ownerless object. Whoever dug it out could have it. Good, good, good. Ao said good 3 times in a row, and laughed out loud. Without the interference of the bat leader, and with the fire crystal dug out, the depression during this time was completely gone. Ao laughed so hard that his chest shook. Excited. Excited. Carefree. Dad, let me see, let me see. It was rare for Ta to call Ao in this way in front of others. Usually, when there were others, he called Ao Chief. Ao wanted to show the fairness of a chief. He couldn't get more advantages just because Ta was his son. But now Ta didn't care. He called Ao out because he wanted to let Ao know that his son was still waiting. Let Ao see it first. However, Ao didn't understand his son's mood. He closed his 5 fingers and held the fire crystal. Is there any more? Ao asked Kiki. There should be more. Kiki scratched his head. He wasn't sure. He just came to report the good news after digging out the fire crystal. Let's go inside and have a look. Ao couldn't wait to walk into the cave with others. Xiao was the last. Before entering the cave, he looked up at the mountain covered with black fog and the ink-like top of the mountain. Xian, come here. Kiki urged in the cave. Coming. Looking back from the mountain, Xiao walked into the cave. Chapter 223. Under the giant pit, there was indeed a place similar to the fire crystal mine. After Kiki, someone dug out another fire crystal. The morale, which had been low for more than 10 days, was suddenly lifted. What was the purpose of coming here? Wasn't it just to dig out more fire crystals? Since they couldn't dig out the fire crystals in the giant pit, they could dig out the fire crystals here. Besides, the bat leader was in closed-door training, so they didn't have to worry about anything. They dug hard, thinking that they could dig out as much as they could while the bat leader was away. Another 6 days passed. The fire crystals, big and small, had filled a bag, and this was only a part of them. Xiao estimated that there was still about half of them. These fire crystals were enough for all the warriors in the tribe. Seeing Ao open a roll of animal skin, Ta wiped the sweat on his face and asked, "What did the shaman say?" After finding the fire crystals, Ao wrote another roll of animal skin for the shaman and asked someone to take it to the shaman. The joy of finding the fire crystals faded a little from Ao's face, and he looked a little serious. No one is allowed to disclose the fire crystals. During the break, Ao called everyone over and ordered them not to tell others the location of the fire crystals, the process of finding them and how much they dug out. The last time the 5 hunting groups came here, they found the fire crystals in the giant pit. But this time, they dug an underground tunnel under the giant pit to the foot of the mountain, which needed to be kept secret. If they didn't go back to the old place, it didn't matter, because it was theirs anyway. But then they would definitely go back to the old place. Once someone told people in other tribes about this, it would bring a lot of trouble, and even a war. The fewer people knew, the better. Fortunately, this time they brought people from the advance group. They knew and understood these people well, so they trusted them. It was time to go hunting, and they needed to go back to the tribe. Ao didn't take all of them back, but left some people here to keep digging. He took the other people and the fire crystals to meet with the hunting group, and then went back to the tribe. Xueqi wanted to stay, in case the bat leader suddenly came out, but Ao refused. The shaman asked you to go back. Xueqi didn't insist. If the shaman wanted him to go back, he must have something to tell him. When the hunting team returned to the tribe, all the people in the tribe knew that the chief had brought people to look for the fire crystals. It was impossible to keep it a secret, as long as they did not tell them the specific location. Fortunately, many people in the tribe were obedient. If the chief and the shaman didn't say anything, they wouldn't ask. For them, it was a great fortune to have the fire crystals. They didn't need to care about other things. The entire tribe was overflowing with joy. Recently, there had been a lot of good news. They had returned to their old haunt, and now they had the fire crystals. Everything made them happy for a long time. At the top of the mountain, inside the shaman's stone house, the chief, the two team leaders, and several elders who had more authority in the tribe all gathered here. Xueqi was also there. In the past, Xueqi was not qualified to attend such meetings. But now, no one had any objection. Sometimes, when making some decisions, they would ask for Xueqi's opinion. After all, Xueqi was the only one who went to the old haunt and came back. He knew much more than those who stayed here all the time. The tribe will let everyone absorb the fire crystals during the sacrifice ceremony next year. The shaman said, but before the sacrifice ceremony, we can't relax. They couldn't put down other things just because of the fire crystals. Moreover, how much they could absorb depended on their state and ability. Those who had many hidden injuries, those who had not recovered from serious diseases, and those who were malnourished, it was better to adjust their body to the best state before the sacrifice ceremony. This time, it was not a matter of one person or a few people. It was related to the whole tribe. Everyone, from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, had to pay attention to it. Ao nodded, looked at Tar and Gigu, and said, I will take people to the Green Land and try to bring back as many herbs as possible. Many injuries of totem warriors couldn't be healed by themselves, so they had to rely on herbs. Ordinary herbs were not very effective, so they had to use the ones in the Green Land. Leave the fire crystals with me first. The shaman asked Xueqi, who had been sitting on the side and had been silent, Xian, what do you want to say? When I was there, I found that many people had their own ways to find the fire crystals. If we take a lot of fire crystals there, we will be like living targets. Probably before we reach the old haunt, we will be consumed by waves of people, especially those from the central tribes. They are not weaker than us. Hearing this, everyone, including the chief, was shocked. They looked at Xueqi, waiting for him to continue. I know that some people use jade boxes to store the fire crystals, which can block all kinds of detection. But, Xueqi pointed to the big bag of fire crystals on the stone table in the middle, and said, we don't have enough jade boxes to store the fire crystals. Besides, jade is also very precious there. No one had found a jade mine around, and no one had ever seen jade. It was the ones brought back by Xueqi that made people have a preliminary understanding. The shaman smiled. Don't worry about this. Saying this, the shaman took out a wooden box, which also contained fire crystals. However, before opening the box, Xueqi did not perceive the existence of the fire crystals. What is this? Xueqi's eyes lit up. This is a box made of hollow wood. I believe that the blocking effect is not weaker than that of jade. Hollow wood can be found in the Green Land. After cutting it and drying it, we can also bring it back to make boxes. The shaman said. That's good. Gigu patted his thigh. I'll take people there to cut more and bring them back. We can make more hollow wood boxes and bring all the fire crystals back to the old land. No, I don't plan to take all the fire crystals. The shaman's words stunned the excited people. Why? They were puzzled. The shaman smiled faintly. If one day we go back to the old land and encounter a bigger accident, we will come back here. This is our escape route. Leaving some fire crystals is also a safeguard. Inheritance and continuity were things that every tribe could not ignore. As the shaman, he naturally had to consider things in the long term. The fire crystals dug out are enough for all the totem warriors in the next sacrificial ceremony. As for the rest, take some of them with you and keep them for future use. As for the rest, Ao, you have to put them back into the tunnel you dug, and then close the tunnel and cover it. As long as those who followed Ao kept the secret of the tunnel, it would be fine. Xueqi had said that the fire crystals were very tempting. The shaman believed that when outsiders got the news from other people in the tribe, they would definitely look for the giant pit. What was in the giant pit? The half-king level bat leader. If someone really looks for it, then let them die. The shaman's usually calm gaze became sharp, causing everyone present to feel a chill run down their spines. They couldn't help but tremble. King beasts were not common. Xueqi only knew that there was a king stoneworm in the mountain where Mai's hunting group's second stronghold was, and he had felt that kind of pressure from a very dangerous distance. King beasts were not easy to deal with. Xueqi was just an exception. He believed that the king beasts could deal with the outsiders in the future. Even if the half-king level bat leader was not really at the king level, it was enough to deal with them. The shaman's words made the people present silent for a long time, and then they sighed deeply. We do need to think more about it. I have no objection to this. Let's do as you say. Don't let others know about this. The shaman didn't let them leave until they finished discussing the fire crystals in the stone house. Xian, you stay, the shaman said. When the others left, the shaman said to Xueqi, remember to prepare for the sacrificial dance at the beginning of next year. Xueqi's face twitched, and he said yes. Although the dance was a little weird, he would get used to it. For this dance, he had to hunt some good prey and make new clothes. At that time, it would be inappropriate to wear the old clothes at the sacrificial ceremony. He would be laughed at, and his strength would be regarded as stagnant. The shaman asked Xueqi to be one of the members of the sacrificial dance, not only because of Xueqi's contribution to the tribe. In the year when Xueqi was away, fewer people awakened their totem power at the sacrificial ceremony. In addition, the shaman tried to engrave 2 beasts, but they both failed. The warriors who raised the beasts thought it was their own problem. They didn't raise the beasts well, so the engraving failed. But the shaman knew that he was the main reason. When he engraved the beasts, he wasn't as good as when he engraved the first batch of beasts. Halfway through the engraving, he felt powerless. One of the beasts didn't even have a totem. The shaman thought that Xueqi was also the reason. When Xueqi was there, the situation would be much better. Of course, the shaman wouldn't tell Xueqi about this. But every time he thought about it, the shaman wished he could go to the fire pit and kowtow to his ancestors, to vent his depression. How could such a talent not be a shaman? Xueqi didn't know about the shaman's depression at all. He went to find Ao, and decided to go to the Green Land with him. Before returning to the old haunt, he wanted to find more herbs. One reason was to prepare for the future. When he returned to the old haunt, there would be many places to use herbs. But when he arrived at the old haunt, he wouldn't be able to adapt completely in a short time. He didn't know the geography of the old haunt, so it would be difficult to find good herbs. And the other reason was because of Old Ku. Old Ku was old. Before the sacrificial ceremony, he wanted to give him more nourishment. The better he was during the sacrificial ceremony, the more fire crystals he could absorb. It would be good for Old Ku in the future. In other tribes, disabled people like Old Ku didn't live well. Xueqi only hoped that he could improve as much as possible. Before the winter came, the entrance to the fire crystal cave was blocked, and the surroundings were covered. No one could see that there was a tunnel there. After 2 or 3 years, it would be even more difficult to see. Before the winter, Xueqi prepared a lot of food for the children in the cave. In the past 2 years, the kids who came out of the mountain cave would bring something to the kids in the mountain cave before winter every year. Now the kids in the mountain cave had caught fish and meat sent by others, so they were much stronger than before. If they were well nourished, their chances of awakening would be higher. Chapter 224. The winter in the tribe was still filled with endless snowflakes and extremely cold weather. Yanji and the others were on the mountain. In such weather, they couldn't survive alone. Fortunately, they were taken care of. The people in the tribe had never looked forward to the end of winter so much. In the ritual ceremony after the end of winter, not only the newly arrived tribesmen who had been living outside would participate in the awakening, but also the fire crystals, which the tribe was looking forward to the most. The warriors rubbed their palms and didn't forget to exercise in winter. Even if they couldn't run far, many people moved stones at home to practice. They wanted to be in the best state during the ritual ceremony. They didn't want to be weak after winter. Xueqi often ran up the mountain. The shaman and the chief had been planning to go back to the old land. Every time, they would call Xueqi to go there. When he was free, Xueqi would go to the medicine house to help the Guizhe sort out the herbs. The tortoise in the medicine house, which was responsible for dealing with the dregs of herbs, had grown a lot. Its shell was 2 meters high. It was unknown whether it was because of the successful engraving or because it often ate herbs, but the tortoise grew faster and stronger. The ridges on its shell were more prominent. It looked more difficult to deal with it than the crocodiles of the drumming tribe. Every time Xueqi went there, the tortoise would bite Xueqi, but every time, it would be slapped aside by Xueqi with a knife. When the moon came out again after winter, the tribe was excited. Old Ku, who had been taken care of for a whole winter, looked radiant and healthy, and looked much younger. On the day of the ritual ceremony, Xueqi took out the fur of the giant bear he had hunted last year. This was what he would wear in the ritual dance. In order to hunt this giant bear, Xueqi had chased it for more than 10 days. Have you prepared the clothes? Have you gotten rid of the worms on the bear skin? Yes. Hey, Old Ku, don't you need to get rid of the bear claws? They are in the way. Wearing the bear claw gloves, Xueqi couldn't see where the fingers were. Anyone who looked at it would see the black bear claws. No, claws are awesome. Okay. And the bear tooth necklace. Don't forget this. Old Ku quickly put the bear tooth necklace on Xueqi's neck. The big white carrot-like bear teeth were strung together. It looked a little weird to wear it on the neck. Even a slender neck wouldn't be able to support such a thick necklace. This was not unexpected among the tribe's living beings. Then I'll go up the mountain first. You can go up with Caesar later. Cha-cha, find a place to play by yourself. Don't go too far. Xueqi shouted at the eagle in the sky. All right, hurry up and go up the mountain. Maybe the shamaness and the leader have something to tell you. Xueqi was chased out of the house by Old Ku and walked up the mountain. Today, everyone was dressed to the nines. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to recognize who was who. Although he had participated in many sacrificial ceremonies, Xueqi still couldn't help but feel like he was at a gathering of wild beasts every time. Looking around, there were people wearing leather, horns, bone ornaments, snakeskin belts, animal bone masks. There were all kinds of people. When he went up the mountain, Xueqi met Yanji and the others, who were looking around eagerly. Yanji and the others, who had participated in this kind of ceremony for the first time, were quite reserved, but they couldn't hide the excitement on their faces. So awesome! They hadn't awakened, so naturally they didn't have their own sacrificial animal clothes. What they were wearing now were just ordinary animal skins, which were given to them by the tribe to keep them warm. Xueqi waved his bear claws to Yanji and the others, and greeted them. The bear claws on the bear paw gloves were too big and troublesome. However, the tribe was looking at these troublesome things today, so Xueqi couldn't take them off. Yanji and the others looked at Xueqi's clothes with envy. So nice. Are you talking about Xian? You haven't seen the thorn black wind leather clothes he used to wear. I still think that one looks more awesome. A passerby joked. The giant bear was not worse than the thorn black wind, but the thorns on the thorn black wind's body were indeed more ferocious than the bear's skin. Don't envy others. When you awaken, you can go hunting with the hunting team, and then you can have your own sacrificial animal clothes. The man said. Can we also hunt something like Xian's clothes in the future? Jiao Wu clenched his fist. It depends on your strength. After all, there are few people like Xian. No matter what, you have to awaken first. Yes, they were going to awaken and become real totem warriors. This year, they were wearing clothes prepared for them by others, so they couldn't compare with others. But next year, the year after that, and every year after that, they would wear the best trophies they had hunted to participate in the ceremony of the tribe. Xueqi first went to the shaman, and together with the others who were going to perform the sacrificial dance, they painted lines on their faces, and then went to the fire pit. There are many people who are going to awaken this year. Xueqi said. Yes, last year 7 people failed to awaken. This year, including Yanji and the others, there are more than 100. Tua put on the animal bone mask and said. Just now, he had taken off the mask to paint lines on his face, and now he put it on. The animal bone mask was made by cutting off the head of a ferocious beast, boiling it, and removing the skin and flesh, leaving only the bones and the teeth in the mouth. Those sharp teeth were also the most important part. It was recognized in the tribe that the best animal bone mask could not have broken teeth, not to mention that the sacrificial dancers had higher requirements. Xiao could only see Tuo's face through the mouth of sharp teeth. The night gradually fell. The whole mountain and all the people of the tribe had gathered at the top of the mountain. After the chief finished speaking, the shaman walked to the fire pit. The shaman chanted the incantation. In the fire pit, the fire seed that was originally like a small flame suddenly rolled up and filled the entire fire pit with a boom. This situation was much more intense than before. Not to mention the other people around, even the shaman was stunned and stopped for a moment. The music sounded, and the sacrificial dancers started to work. Xiao, who was wearing a thick bearskin, jumped up and danced with the well-dressed people around him, baring their teeth and brandishing their claws. While dancing, Xiao once again entered the mysterious state that seemed to be separated from reality. He seemed to see the barbaric and exaggerated people around the fire pit, waving their hands and feet, dancing around the fire pit. Around them, further away, there were tall stone houses. The flame in the fire pit doubled again, and the two-horned totem in the flame seemed to rush out. The whole mountain top was covered with a layer of fiery light. The flames that flew out of the fire pit were denser than any other time before. At the same time, in another place far away from the Yanjiao tribe, in the old land of the Yanjiao tribe, where the fire pit used to be, the fire vein appeared again. First there was a shining light spot in the center, and then, from this light spot, there were 6 fiery veins extending in 6 directions. The birds nesting in the surrounding trees, who had just fallen asleep, were awakened. Flocks of birds flew out of their nests, screaming cha-cha, and flew away in the direction away from the fire pit. A nocturnal ferocious beast, who had just stepped into this area, growled and turned around to leave quickly. On the ground, where the fire veins spread, the bloodthirsty vines that had captured countless creatures struggled weakly and quickly withered. Following the departure of the flying birds and insects, this place was completely silent. There was no music, no dancers, and no one. Under the dark night sky, only the fire veins on the ground lit up the ruins. Chapter 225. In the Wanshi tribe. In the witch's house. The door where the skull of a beast was hanging was pulled open. The witch, with colorful totem patterns on his face, walked out, sweating. He hurried to the chief's house. The chief of the Wanshi tribe was enjoying being served by the female captives he caught last year. He was unhappy to be disturbed by the witch. "What's the matter?" The witch rushed in, panting, and said, "There's a change in the fearsome beast forest." The Wanshi chief suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes became as sharp as a poisoned knife. "Are you sure?" What happened in the fearsome beast forest last year made the Wanshi chief feel like he had been slapped in the face. It was always their tribe that slaughtered, invaded, bullied, and robbed others. Before that, he had never felt so frustrated. Every time he thought of that, he felt like someone was waiting to slap him in the face. He also strictly forbade anyone from talking about it. It would damage the reputation of the Wanshi tribe. No one was allowed to mention it. Anyone who mentioned it would be killed. So far, he had killed more than 10 people who talked too much. That incident was a thorn in the Wanshi chief's throat that he could not pull out. But because of the previous casualties, he did not send anyone to the fearsome beast forest. "I'm sure." Just now, that ominous feeling was very strong. "I felt." The Wanshi shaman's tone was unsteady. He could hear his heart beating faster than usual. "What did you feel?" "I felt." Looking into the chief's bloody eyes, the Wanshi shaman lowered his head and said nothing. "Speak." The Wanshi shaman took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Suppression of the fire seed." The air in the house suddenly froze. The few women who had been serving their leader with a smile just now were now trembling like a sieve, but they didn't make a single sound, for fear that they would be noticed because of the sound they made. They had been serving their leader for some time now and were familiar with her temper. At this moment, the leader was extremely angry. They didn't know that the Wanshi chief was not only angry, but also scared. These two emotions mixed together and made him lose focus for a moment. But then he came back to his senses and smashed the wooden table beside him into pieces. The violent totem power made the evil spirit around him stronger and stronger. His red eyes looked at the women who were huddled around him. The people patrolling near the leader's house suddenly heard screams and screams coming from the leader's house. Soon, the screams stopped abruptly. Bang! The wooden door was kicked open from the inside out and shattered into pieces. A man covered in blood walked out of the house in large strides. Every step he took was like a hammer pounding on the hearts of the patrolling guards, causing them to breathe carefully. They were worried that their leader would take his anger out on them. Fortunately, the chief of the Wanshi tribe didn't pay attention to them. He strode away, heading for the fire pit. After the Wanshi chief, the Wanshi shaman also came out. His face was expressionless. When he passed by the guards, he paused and said to them, "Clean up the house." "Yes." The patrolmen replied. They knew what the shaman meant by things in the house. After the chief and the shaman left, the patrolmen walked into the house and cleaned up the bloodstains and mutilated corpses. It was not the first time that they had dealt with such things. They didn't care about the blood in the house at all. While cleaning up, they whispered to each other about why the chief was so angry. When the Wanshi chief came to the fire pit, he was terrified when he saw the fire that was smaller than usual. Although the shaman told him about it, he couldn't control his emotions when he saw it with his own eyes. The Wanshi shaman stood 10 steps away from the chief. Based on his understanding of the chief, he would be in trouble if he stood too close to him. "Gather the people. I want to go to the ferocious beasts mountain forest in person." With these words, the pebbles at the Wanshi chief's feet were all broken into pieces. For the people of the Wanshi tribe, it was not a peaceful night. The chief was angry, and everyone was trembling with fear. They heard that they would go to the ferocious beasts mountain forest tomorrow, which made them even more worried. They wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. On the other side, the Yanjiao tribe was immersed in the joy of the sacrifice. They didn't know what kind of people would come to their old haunt. They were absorbing the energy of the fire crystals. The 3 flames of the fire pit had been completed. Looking at the 3rd flame, the shaman said it was good luck. In the past, after the 3 flames of the fire pit were completed, the sacrifice would come to an end. After the chief and the shaman announced something, they would disperse and go home. But today, after the 3rd flame, the fire in the fire pit was taken back. The shaman took out the fire crystals that everyone had been waiting for. After waiting for a whole winter, the time finally came. Every totem warrior was absorbing the energy released from the fire pit and integrating it into their bodies. This situation didn't happen every year. Except for those who hadn't awakened their totem power, Xueqi was the most relaxed one. The energy of the fire crystals didn't have a direct effect on his improvement. However, in order not to stand out too much, he still stayed with the others. Unlike the others, he didn't absorb the energy. Instead, he was thinking about the mysterious state when he performed the sacrificial dance. What he saw at that time should be the prosperity of the Yanjiao tribe, not the current scene. That scene was similar to what he saw in the old haunt. The old haunt. When the tribe went back with the fire seed, there should be more changes there. When the fire crystals in the fire pit were used up, it was almost dawn. Everyone absorbed different amounts of fire crystal energy. Some absorbed more, some absorbed less. Some absorbed faster, some slower. The faster ones didn't leave after absorbing all the fire crystal energy. Instead, they urged the totem power in their bodies to digest the absorbed energy and fuse it with the fire crystal energy. Some people who were close to the breakthrough point were promoted to a new level on the spot. The young warriors couldn't restrain the joy on their faces when they saw the totem tattoos extending over their elbows. But because the sacrifice was not over, they didn't dare to make a sound. They could only try to hold back their laughter, clenching their teeth and fists. Their faces were distorted. The shaman glanced at them and smiled. After announcing the end of the sacrifice, everyone left one after another. Those who had a good relationship with each other would talk more tonight and celebrate together. After a few days when they are stable, summarize the situation and report it to me, the chief said to the people next to him. Yes. The 100 totem warriors who were going to awaken their totem power tonight, including Yanji and the others, all succeeded in awakening their totem power and becoming totem warriors. Zhao Wu almost couldn't hold back his laughter and began to cry. Yanji, Yan Shuo and the others also had tears in their eyes. The children next to them didn't understand why these people, who were older than them, were crying. Although it was very proud to awaken their totem power and become totem warriors, they didn't need to be so excited. The shaman didn't say anything and asked people to take these new warriors to the side. Tonight, he had to teach these new warriors a lesson. Let's go, Xian. Old Ke sat on the wolf's back and shouted at the edge of the top of the mountain. Coming. Xiao Xian looked away from the fire pit and towards Old Ku and Caesar. Have you been promoted? Old Ku patted his wrist. He was asking Xiao Xian if he could be promoted from an intermediate totem warrior to a senior totem warrior. The totem tattoos on the arms of senior totem warriors could go over their wrists. Because Xiao Xian was wearing a sacrificial animal costume, Old Ku couldn't see the totem tattoos on his arms, so he asked. Xiao Xian shook his head. Old Ku's expectant eyes dimmed, but then he smiled and said, "It's okay, take your time." Old Ku just saw that many people had been promoted by one level tonight. In his opinion, Xiao Xian was a very excellent and talented warrior, so he should be promoted by a lot. But when he saw Xiao Xian shake his head, he was worried that Xiao Xian would think too much and be too depressed, so he put aside his disappointment and comforted Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian smiled and didn't say anything. When they went down the mountain, Xiao Xian was stopped by Lang Jie and the others. Many people in the hunting group had been promoted by a lot, and Mai had directly become a senior totem warrior. Everyone was happy. As the leader of the hunting group, Mai waved his hand and called all the warriors in the hunting group together to celebrate. And Xiao Xian, who was the biggest contributor, naturally couldn't be left out. "You go." Old Ku smiled and his eyes narrowed. He patted Xiao Xian's shoulder, and then patted Caesar's head. "Let's go back first." After a winter's rest and recuperation, plus the fire seed energy and fire crystal energy he absorbed during the ritual ceremony, Old Ku now felt that he had returned to the time when he was young. He was full of strength, and the improvement of his body was very obvious. Although he had lost a leg, he could walk down the mountain easily with a crutch. However, Old Ku didn't walk. He rode on a wolf, and under the disdainful eyes of Gu and other old acquaintances, he slowly went down the mountain while humming the hunting song. Before the first hunting this year, the shaman and the chief got the statistics, and the result made them very happy. Originally, there were only more than 10 senior totem warriors, and 2 of them were old warriors. Compared with the young and middle-aged warriors, their fighting strength was naturally inferior. But this time, there were 20 more young and middle-aged senior totem warriors. According to the report, although many people didn't succeed in the breakthrough, they were close to the turning point. It was believed that they were not far away from the breakthrough. Good. Very good. In order to go back to the old land, the shaman and the chief naturally hoped that there would be more powerful warriors in the tribe. After all, when they went there, they would have to face more challenges, from people and ferocious beasts. Only with more powerful strength could they go back and stand firm. "How's the shipbuilding?" the chief asked the warrior next to him. "Still trying." The warrior reported the progress of the shipbuilding to the chief and the shaman. "It's too slow," Ao said. Because they were looking forward to going back to the old land, naturally they were not satisfied with the current progress. "It's not urgent," the shaman said. However, even though he said that, his next sentence was to discuss with the leader whether or not they should dig a large pool near the training ground, the kind that didn't have wood-eating insects. It would be good for the shipbuilders to test the ships that they built. After all, it was related to the fate of the entire tribe. Digging a big pool was not a small project. Choosing a place, digging a hole, drawing water, and other processes were not easy. However, Ao agreed without hesitation. Chapter 226. The chief and the shaman said that they were going to dig a big pool. Everyone worked hard to dig. When the hunting warriors went out, some people stayed in the tribe to dig. Some people who had trouble walking also went to help. Many women in the tribe who had not awakened their totem power also went to help. After the first hunt, Xiao Xian returned to the tribe. They had already dug a big pit of more than 400 square meters, and they were still digging. At the foot of the mountain, some children from the cave were helping to boil the gelatin. A 20-meter-long wooden boat was placed there. Yan Ji and the others were busy filling the seams. This was only the first boat they tested. There were 2 bigger boats next to it, but they were not finished yet. Xiao Xian picked up the tools and went to help. "How is it going?" Xiao Xian asked. "Before the rainy season, these 3 boats will be finished. At that time, we will try these 3 boats. If they were successful, they would try to build bigger boats." As the shaman said, the boats they built were important to the people of the tribe. The quality of the boats had to be good. Otherwise, they would be hit by fish in the river and leak. "How was the hunting?" Jiao Wu couldn't help but ask. "Not bad." Xiao Xian followed the advance group to the green land. This time, they found a kind of curly-tailed herb and hunted a lot of prey on the way. They were satisfied with the harvest. "We are going to go hunting too." Jiao Wu said. Yes, but not until next time. Xiao Xian said. Yan Ji and the others were the same as most of the new warriors. They would not follow the first 2 hunts, and would go out with the advance group on the 3rd hunt. However, because of their special status, they would definitely send someone to protect them. When we leave, you will take care of this place. Yan Ji said to Xiao Xian. Don't worry. Yan Ji and the others and Xiao Xian would not go hunting at the same time. In this way, they could ensure that there would be someone watching over the boat every time. The Yanjiao tribe dug a hole and directly dug a lake. Even the Longboat tribe's fleet would have a large space inside. The warriors who dug the lake didn't think it was big enough. If it weren't for the fact that they were surrounded by mountains, which made it difficult to dig, they would have dug even more. During the rainy season, water would be stored here. When the rainy season was over and there were no wood-eating insects in the river, the water would be brought here. From the lake to the river, a waterway nearly 10 meters wide was dug. This made it easier for the boats in the lake to travel directly to the river. Under Xiao Xian's suggestion and guidance, a sluice gate was built near the mouth of the river. The sluice gate would be closed except for the period after the end of the rainy season. The lake and waterway have been dug. We're just waiting for the rainy season to come. During the rainy season, the lake would be filled with water from the river. Unfortunately, we can't go back this year. Lang Jie looked at the dug lake and waterway and said, if it weren't for the insects in the river, we wouldn't have to spend so much effort to dig the lake. We could just put the boat in the river and try it. There's no other way. Let's wait until next year. It should be possible next year. While the people of the Yanjiao tribe were busy, on the other side of the river, in the old place of the Yanjiao tribe, in the Ferocious Beasts Mountain Forest, the chief of the Wanshi tribe led a large number of people there. This time, he brought nearly 1/3 of all the warriors of the tribe. Because of various ferocious beasts and dangerous plants in the mountain forest, many of them died. But in the end, they found the old place of the Yanjiao tribe. Scraping the moss and vines on the stone with a knife, the chief of the Wanshi tribe, Bian, with bloodstains on his body, looked at the words carved on the stone and read softly Yanjiao. Then he snorted and said disdainfully to the shaman who came over, "Is this your concern? This tribe that has long been extinct?" The Wanshi shaman didn't speak. Bien's smiling face became ferocious. He punched the big stone with the words carved on it. Bang! A fist-sized hole appeared on the hard stone. The stone, which had been firmly standing on the ground, was knocked down by this force and rolled away. He didn't look at the stone that had rolled away and continued to lead the group forward. Not long after, they arrived at the ruins. From a long time ago, the Wanshi tribe knew that there used to be a tribe here. But that tribe disappeared, leaving only ruins. Later, the chiefs who took over didn't care about the ruins in the mountain forest anymore. Because the mountain forest was expanding day by day, the ruins became more and more dangerous, so they rarely went inside. The ruins recorded the historical events of the great changes in the world. The tribe that used to live here was no longer as glorious as before. No one stayed, and they were regarded as extinct by everyone. Although it was already the season of lush vegetation and the surrounding forest was full of vitality, everyone who stood in front of the ruins could feel a sense of desolation. It was as if an old man had lifted up his cover and revealed his body that was riddled with scars. Glory and shame were things that happened thousands of years ago. Except for the people of the Yanjiao tribe, others didn't have such deep feelings. Just like the people of the Wanshi tribe standing here. Except for a little inexplicable emotion when they saw the ruins for the first time, they only thought about whether there were any precious things left here. Bien, the chief of the Wanshi tribe, looked at the obvious 6 marks on the ground and narrowed his eyes dangerously. Are these the marks of sacrifice? Bien pointed at the 6 lines that seemed to have been burned and asked the shaman. Although he didn't know much about this kind of sacrifice, he could see that these were the marks of another tribe's sacrifice ceremony. Every tribe had its own style of sacrifice. It should be, said the shaman. It should be? The shaman paused and said, I don't feel the existence of the fire seed here. Of course there is no fire seed here. This tribe died out long ago. Bien shouted. But if there was no fire seed, why would there be a suppression of the fire seed? If there was a suppression of the fire seed, it meant that another tribe was stronger than them. If it wasn't the big tribe that had died out, could it be a conspiracy of other tribes in the central region? The Wanshi tribe had made trouble for the Lu tribe many times and had been warned by several big tribes in the central region. So they deliberately held a sacrificial ceremony here to frighten the Wanshi tribe? Maybe the previous incident was also caused by those guys in the central region. Bien thought to himself. After all, except for them, no one was against him and it was impossible for them to create a suppression of the fire seed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. Bien ignored the shaman, who wanted to say something but stopped, and called someone. Destroy everything in the surroundings. Completely and utterly destroyed. Especially here. Bien pointed to the center of the 6 marks. Dig these out. Don't let me see these again. Although he thought it was the work of those old guys in the central region, he didn't have a good feeling about this place, especially the tall pillar, which seemed to be mocking the Wanshe tribe. Although the Wanshe tribe was one of the strongest in the central region, it was still weaker than the other big tribes because of the suppression of the fire seed. Destroy this too. He couldn't do anything to those old guys in the central region, but couldn't he do anything to these stone ruins? Anyway, it was useless to keep these things. If the tribe was gone, what was the point of these stones? They were an eyesore. In the mountain forest, with a bang, the tall pillar where Xueqi once stood fell down. Not only that, but Feng Wu was still not satisfied with the fallen stone pillar. He ordered his men to break the stone pillar into pieces and chisel many holes into the broken pillar. The paintings carved on the stone pillar were also destroyed until they were even more blurred. Not a single complete pattern could be seen. The surrounding ruins were even more ruined. Some half-collapsed stone houses all fell down. Large stone slabs were knocked into small pieces and the small pieces were thrown away in all directions. The better stones were dug out and taken away. The place where the fire pit used to be had been dug into pits of various sizes. It was completely different from what Xueqi saw when he first came here. The trees were cut down and the grass was dug up. The whole place was almost peeled off and changed. Looking at the final result, Bien was very satisfied. Then he laughed and set a fire in the forest. Burn those eyesores. Perhaps if they were burned, no one would come here to make trouble again. It would be better to burn the forest here, but it was impossible. There were many pools nearby and ferocious beasts. Some ferocious beasts also knew how to put out fire. It was a pity. However, it was better not to burn them all. Otherwise, all the ferocious beasts here would be forced out, and the Wanshe tribe would be the first to suffer. Even if they couldn't burn them all, it would make Bien feel better. He liked to destroy. The feeling of destroying with his own hands was very pleasant. Let's go. Looking at the burning fire and smoke, Bien turned his head and shouted. In this season, in this place, the fire didn't spread fast. Many trees around were not easy to burn. There was no wind today, which gave them enough time to leave. Although many people were killed in the forest this time, Bien felt that it was worthwhile to come here. He got rid of one of his worries. Let's see what those old guys will do, Bien said. Although he admitted that those old strongmen were stronger than the Wanshe tribe, he wasn't afraid. They couldn't be much stronger, right? Those people of those tribes couldn't come here to fight with the Wanshe tribe, right? Bien left with his people. But before they went far, drops of rain began to fall from the sky. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The fire, which was set well and not easy to burn before, was gradually extinguished. The rising smoke was also extinguished. Bah, it's raining, Bien said discontentedly. Today's weather was really gloomy. He knew there would be rain, but he didn't expect it to rain as soon as he set the fire. However, Bien didn't intend to go back. Let it be. Anyway, he had done what he should do. Different from Bien's good mood, the shaman's mood was more complicated. Because the uneasiness in his heart rose again, and it was stronger than before. He hoped that he was oversensitive. Chapter 227. After the people of the Wanshe tribe went to the old land of the Yanjiao tribe, many of them still felt a little anxious, especially the Wanshe shaman. He always felt that there was a big stone pressing on his heart, making it difficult for him to breathe. However, since then, the chief of the Wanshe tribe, Fuji, sent people into the forest again. Except for the wild beasts, ferocious beasts and some dangerous plants, there was no other abnormality. As a result, the people of the Wanshe tribe, who had been frightened by the annihilation of the Yanjiao tribe, had almost dissipated. Now the people of the Wanshe tribe felt that he had stabbed someone he didn't like. They had been worried about the other party's resistance and revenge, but they found that he was fine. Then they would stab him again. Oh, he was fine. So they started to tremble. They became bolder and bolder and became more and more fearless. Fuji finally spat out the thorn in his heart. At this time, he was more sure that the annihilation of the Yanjiao tribe and the suppression of the fire seed were all tricks played by the old guys of those tribes. But that was all. Yulan revealed a smug smile. Anyway, those people couldn't do anything to him. One of the ancestors of the Wanshe tribe once said that the central tribes would not easily start a war with the larger tribes. And this was also the reason why the successive chiefs of the Wanshe tribe didn't hide their ambitions and wantonly waved their claws. Fuji was the same. However, the Wanshe shaman was still worried. As the days went by, the big stone in his heart didn't disappear, but became heavier and heavier. Fuji didn't hide his claws, but the Wanshe shaman was afraid that one day, when the Wanshe tribe unscrupulously stretched out his claws, his arms and legs would be chopped off. No matter what the people of the Wanshe tribe were doing, on the other side of the river, the Yanjiao tribe was busy with shipbuilding and training. Since the artificial lake was filled with river water in the rainy season, shipbuilding and training had been accelerated. Except for Xiao Xian and Yan Ji, no one in the Yanjiao tribe had ever ridden a boat since they were born. They needed corresponding training. When the sails didn't work, they needed manpower to paddle and command. They also needed to adapt to the life on the boat. The hunting warriors' time outside had been reduced by half, and the number of hunting routes had also been reduced. Now, for the Yanjiao tribe, they only needed to ensure the basic amount of food. They didn't care too much about quality. Some wild beasts and ferocious beasts that they didn't care about before were now included in the hunting range. They weren't the only ones in the tribe who needed food. The shaman said that now the Yanjiao tribe was a whole, and no one could give up. A year passed. In the artificial lake of the Yanjiao tribe, there were already more than 20 boats. Each boat was more than 30 meters long. Except for the first 3 boats, which had only one deck, the others had 2 to 3 decks. After more than a year of continuous trial and error, the boats now were much better than before. Now Yanji and the others were building a big boat, which was bigger than the other 20 boats. There were 3 big boats in total, and the wood used was excellent. The hunting teams had carefully selected the wood from various hunting grounds. Because in these 3 big boats, there would be the chief and the shaman, as well as the top people in the tribe. Can we set off this year? Lang Jie, who had just finished his training on the boat, came over and asked Xiao Xian. It depends on the progress of shipbuilding and the speed of adaptation. Xiao Xian said. During this year, almost every day, everyone was preparing for the departure. Xiao Xian was called to the top of the mountain to discuss matters. When he was free, Xiao Xian also used his free time to draw a wu roll for the shaman. He drew the key points of what he had seen and heard on the other side of the river on the wu roll, so that the shaman could have a clearer understanding. Orders were passed down from the top of the mountain, and the tribe was changing rapidly. From the time Xiao Xian decided to leave the tribe until now, only 3 years had passed, but the information that everyone had access to was more than the sum of all the information they had received before. Some people were at a loss and were not so enthusiastic about the change, but more people were full of expectations. They wanted to know more new things and meet more people. This boat will probably be finished in 10 days, right? Xiao Xian looked up at the big boat in front of him and said, 10 days. There are about 20 or 30 days left in the rainy season. It's not too late. Several people next to him rubbed their hands. If the boat was finished before the rainy season, they would have a rainy season to prepare. Then when the rainy season was over, the tribe would set off. Let's see how the boat is built. If it's okay. Xiao Xian did not finish his words, but everyone knew what he meant. If the big boat was built, they could set off. On the top of the mountain, in one of the rooms of the shaman's stone house, big boxes and boxes were tidied up and placed there. In addition to the special stone materials, some of the stone boxes and boxes were replaced with wooden ones to reduce the weight. Although the shaman looked quite calm outside, in fact, he had already started to pack things up before the people in the tribe knew. He was more anxious than the others. For so many years, many shamans had failed to complete this task. But now, there was finally hope for him. Seeing Chief Ao come in, the shaman asked, "How is it?" Xian said that the boat will be finished in 10 days. Ao looked at the shaman and did not see anything from his old face. After a pause he said, "If the boat is finished, we can leave this year." "Yes, we can leave this year." The shaman sighed. If they couldn't leave this year, they would have to wait for another year. The rainy season started early this year. but it may last a little longer. This is a rare opportunity, the shaman said. He could not accurately predict the future weather like Xueqi of the Rain tribe, but he could give a general range. The rainy season started early and ended early. That was to say, from the end of the rainy season to the coincidence of the 2 moons, it would take a long time. It was indeed a good opportunity. If they couldn't seize it, they didn't know what would happen next year or the year after. Step up the training and restrain everyone. If anyone makes trouble. The shaman's calm face became serious. Ao nodded. I have already told Tar and Gigu. Even if the ferocious beasts are successfully engraved, if they can't control them well, don't blame me for being ruthless. Nothing could be compared with the tribe, even if the ferocious beasts were successfully tamed and engraved. 10 days later, the 3 big boats were on the artificial lake for trial. How is it? Aoed had already come over. Staring at the 3 boats on the lake, he asked Xiaoxian and Yanji on the boat. There is no problem for the time being. Let's try for a while. Yanji said. Ao still looked serious and looked at Xiaoxian. Seeing Xiaoxian nod slightly, Ao clenched his fists and strode away. The more he walked, the faster he walked. When he went up the mountain, he could only see a shadow. Now that everything was ready, he needed to discuss with the shaman about the departure of the tribe after the rainy season this year. The old place. I really want to see what it looks like, Ao thought. Chapter 228. The rain washed over the earth. With the arrival of the rainy season, the giant river overlords were migrating once a year. In the river, in places that couldn't be seen, there were many aquatic creatures that were doing the same thing as the overlords of the river. Compared to the bustling river, the Yanjiao tribe was much quieter. Except for some guards who were assigned to different places, most people stayed at home. A worm came out of nowhere, moving its countless claws, and quickly crawled into the house. Pa! A wolf's claw slammed down on it, flattening the insect that was about to enter the house. Caesar was lying in the house, almost filling up the hall. Its head was at the door, like a door god, slapping anything that tried to crawl into the house. Oldka stood in the stone crafting room, looking at the heavy rain outside the window with hope in his eyes. Behind him, there were wooden boxes that had already been packed. In the corner of the house, there were some old stone boxes of different sizes, but they couldn't be taken away. Almost there, almost there. In the tribe, there were many people like Old Ku, who had already packed their things. Because of the limited space, there was a limit to what they could bring. If they wanted to bring more, they had to report it and get permission. Otherwise, they would just throw it away. If someone really didn't want to leave their things at home, they could just stay here with those things. At the top of the mountain, Xiao Xian saw the shaman standing by the fire pit, chanting something. During this period, the shaman would come here every day. The shaman said it was a ceremony, a farewell ceremony. When the rainy season ended, the tribe would leave this place where they had lived for nearly 1,000 years. Naturally, they would take the fire with them. The fire in the fire pit, whether it was raining, snowing or windy, the fire was still the same, unaffected. After today's ceremony, the shaman turned around and left the fire pit, walking towards Xiao Xian. Xian, what do you think will happen when Yanjiao returns to the old land? The shaman asked. Xiao Xian thought for a while and said, it won't be peaceful anymore. Yes, it's no longer peaceful. Shaman looked at the misty river in the distance. Although his tone was emotional, the determination in his eyes never wavered. Ao didn't say anything. His face was filled with joy, and his clenched fists showed that he was still excited. He was the chief. In the future, even after he passed away, the descendants of the Yanjiao tribe would still remember him. This was an important turning point in the history of the tribe. Their names would be recorded in the animal skin rolls that would be passed down to future generations. This was a supreme honor. After standing at the top of the mountain for a while, the shaman, Xiao Xian and Ao returned to the stone house. In the house, the 2 team leaders and several other old men had already arrived. All right, let's confirm our return plan again today. Ao spread out a piece of animal skin and said, every 2 days, this group of people would gather here. If they didn't come for a discussion, they would feel uncomfortable all over. As an important member, Xiao Xian was often called up. After all, he was the only one with sailing experience. When the rainy season finally ended, The people who had been silent for the entire rainy season became excited. It was time to leave. The people on the mountain carried large and small boxes down the mountain. Men and women, old and young, groups by groups, walked down the path of glory. Perhaps, this was the last time in their lives that they would walk down this road. A child held his animal skin bag and followed his parents down the mountain. Halfway down the mountain, he looked back at the direction of his house. For some reason, he burst into tears. A big rough hand put on the child's head and turned his head to the front. Look at the road, don't look back. Okay. At the foot of the mountain, Gu and a few others who were usually in charge of delivering food to the cave instructed the children in the cave to leave. Cha-Cha grabbed several boxes that old Ku had tied up and flew to the boat on the other side of the artificial lake. Caesar carried old Ku on his back and went to the other side of the lake with the others at the foot of the mountain. Who would take which boat had been arranged long ago. Moreover, everyone had adapted to the boat for a period of time, so they did not immediately feel uncomfortable after getting on the boat. Xueqi was asked by the shaman to go up the mountain to help. The shaman had the most things. Others could reduce the boxes, but not the shaman. Even if the shaman wanted to reduce the boxes, others would not agree. Those were all left by their ancestors. The warriors who helped to move the boxes were all very careful as if they were fragile objects. Their faces were respectful and their bodies were stiff. They had to be cautious with every step they took. After moving the boxes, Xueqi went to check on old Ku's situation. After confirming that everything was fine, he went up the mountain. Before going up the mountain, Xueqi went to the cave to take a look. When he woke up that year, he was in this cave. In the blink of an eye, so much time had passed. When he came to the stone room with the murals, Xueqi looked at the painting on the wall. His eyes stopped at the end of the painting. After thinking for a while, Xueqi used a stone knife to carve a few words in the blank space behind the painting. We went back to the old place. After writing, he carved the word Xian at the end of the sentence. Standing up, Xueqi blocked the vent with stones and thatch, and then walked out. A gust of wind blew, carrying with it the smell of fish that had not yet dispersed. Xueqi looked at the stone wall near the entrance of the cave. There were still words carved on it when he had not awakened his totemic power. There were also some drawings made with charred branches. In addition to Xueqi's drawings, there were also all kinds of traces left by the children who had lived here for nearly 1,000 years. There were fish bones left after being eaten, tattered animal skins, and messy piles of thatch. Walking out of the cave, Xueqi moved a big stone from not far away to block the entrance of the cave, and covered everything in the cave. When he went up the mountain, he had finished moving everything, and there was nothing for him to do. However, the shaman did not let him leave. Not only Xueqi, but Chief Ao, the two team leaders, Mai and the other leaders of the hunting groups, and the old men who always participated in the meeting, also stayed. The shaman led them to the top of the mountain. When they came down, there was a small flame in the shaman's hand. It was much smaller than the one in the fire pit, and looked like a small flame on a birthday candle. The shaman held it carefully in his hand. Chief Ao walked next to the shaman. As the future successor of the shaman, Guizhe helped the shaman hold the crutch, and stood slightly behind Ao on the other side. The others stood around to protect the shaman. Walking down the path of glory, there were 2 rows of warriors standing on both sides of the road. Among these people, no one was lower than an intermediate totem warrior. When the shaman passed by, the warriors standing there would kneel down and perform the highest salute of the tribe. After the shaman left, they would stand up and follow him, all with red eyes. Walking down the path of glory to the artificial lake where 23 boats were parked, the shaman walked slowly, but no one complained. Those who had already boarded the boats were not impatient at all. The biggest boat had already docked, and a wooden ladder was lowered from above. On the boat, there was a small fire pit, which was only the size of a basin. After the shaman brought the flame up, he put it in there. When the shaman was ready, Ao announced the departure. Woo! The bone horn sounded, and the people in charge of the boats immediately ordered the people to set sail. They had received training. Although they were not as skilled as Xueqi in controlling the boat, they could do it. The boats left the artificial lake one after another. The waterway gate between the lake and the river had been opened, and the boats sailed out of the waterway and came to the river. Above. Well, now everyone should be careful. Be careful not to fall behind. Ao roared. The fleet went farther and farther, and the mountain where the tribe was located gradually became smaller in their vision. Everything that Xueqi had experienced before, This time everyone would experience it again. Under the water, large and small piranhas were active. If one stood on the side of the boat and looked down, he could see many big fish that were longer than a person swimming by. Sometimes they would bump into the boat and make the boat shake. As they sailed, Xueqi, who had been checking the situation on the boats, found that the farther the boats were from the central boat, the more likely they were to be disturbed by the fish. At first, Xueqi did not understand and had various guesses. But when Xueqi suddenly had an idea and looked with his special vision, he found that the light emitted from the central boat touched the boats closest to it, and those boats were rarely hit by the fish. Fire seed. Grabbing Cha-Cha's eagle foot, Xueqi went from the boats in the outer circle to the central boat. He told the shaman and the chief about his discovery, but he did not mention his special ability. Because of the fire seed? The shaman thought for a while and his eyes lit up. Yes, the fire seed can protect the tribe from other beasts and ferocious beasts. The same goes for the fish in the river. As he spoke, the shaman chanted a spell. Just like during the ceremony, the fire seed expanded from a small flame to the whole fire pit. However, the temporary fire pit on the boat was much smaller. Let everyone come closer, the shaman said to Ao. Ao went out and told everyone what the shaman said. The other boats moved closer, but they could not get too close. If they were too close, it would be easy to get into trouble. Walking out of the cabin, Xueqi looked again. The light emitted from the central boat was much brighter and expanded outwards, just enough to cover the approaching boats. Although the boats later were occasionally grazed by some overly curious big fish, the frequency was much less. It was much better than when Xueqi sailed alone. Day by day, the fleet sailed smoothly. In order to make the best use of time, in addition to the sails, there were people on each boat who took turns to paddle. Although there was no Cha-Cha pulling the boats this time, the speed of the boats was good. After determining the direction, they went straight in that direction. They tried to sail in a straight line, unless they encountered some floating dead fish or some dangerous factors. After all, if they could not reach the other side of the river before the water level dropped, all their previous efforts would be in vain. In that case, the Yanjiao tribe would really disappear from the stage of history. At the same time, Xueqi had a strange feeling in his heart again. This time, with the fire seed, protection, and more manpower, Xueqi had more free time. He used this free time to carefully observe the surrounding river, even the clouds in the sky, the moon and the stars in the sky. Xueqi suddenly had a guess in his heart. Maybe, this river was not as big as he thought. Chapter 229. The boat seemed to be moving very fast, braving the wind and waves, but it was very likely that it was only moving a little bit. The direction of the wind on the river often changed, and the direction of the water in the river was very likely to change as well. Xueqi had not noticed this before. When he was in the tribe, he could only see the shallow water near the shore, where it was not obvious. He could only see the horizontal changes of the river. After setting out, he focused on controlling the boat and identifying the direction, so he did not pay attention to the changes of the river's direction. Now that he observed carefully, he found that the vertical direction of the river also changed. So sometimes, the boat seemed to be moving, but in fact, it was just maintaining its position. This was only Xueqi's guess, and he could not confirm it now. However, Xueqi wondered if there was another relatively stable passage in other parts of the river. Where did the giant mountain eagles that went to the Eagle Mountain pass through? In order to avoid forgetting, Xueqi wrote down this question in his animal skin roll. Maybe he would encounter it in the future. Especially the Hui tribe. The tribe's boat had been moving in the direction Xueqi pointed out. At first, some people were not used to it, and even became seasick. Xueqi had already prepared for this. He and the shaman had researched medicine for seasickness. It worked, but it was limited. Many people were holed up in the cabin, and the energetic people were also restricted from moving. At most, they could only come out to look at the scenery outside, and watch the big fish with stripes and thorny dorsal fins downstream. Life on the river was very boring and stressful. No one could sleep well. Sometimes, as soon as they closed their eyes, the boat would shake a few times, and the sleepiness would be scared away. The fear brought by the river to the Yanjiao tribesmen was still there. In order to make sure that they reached the destination before the river level dropped, they traveled day and night, and the warriors took turns to go to the river. As the days passed, the energetic people became as listless as the seasick people. Many people were obviously thinner. The amount of water and food on the ship was also decreasing. Those who didn't work could only get a small amount of food to meet their minimum needs. The rest of the food was given to the soldiers who worked. No one had any complaints about this. The few ferocious beasts that had been successfully engraved on the ship didn't dare to wander around at all. They would be thrown into the river to feed the fishes. Every day, they could only look enviously at the Cha-Cha that could fly around in the sky and catch fish. When Cha-Cha flew down from the sky and looked at the sky with fear, Xueqi informed them in advance that there was no wind around them, so Ao asked everyone to paddle with all their might. When they finally got out of the dangerous area, they looked back and found that the wooden planks thrown behind them were instantly smashed into pieces. The river water seemed to have evaporated and turned into a mist. Ao and the others had the same feeling as Xueqi. They gasped and couldn't calm down for a long time. "This river is indeed dangerous," Ao said. Ta and Gigu looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. They nodded and agreed with Ao's words. At first, they only knew that Xueqi had a hard time crossing the river. There were many difficulties, but they didn't have any idea. But when they experienced it themselves, they knew how dangerous it was. If they were careless, they would be buried at the bottom of the river. After experiencing it themselves, Xueqi became more and more important in the hearts of the people in the tribe. It could be said that without Xueqi, even if the tribe built a big ship, it would be impossible to cross the river safely. "Are we almost there?" Ta looked ahead. It was still a boundless river. "It's still far away, but I think we can make it," Xueqi said. This year, the rainy season came early and ended early, leaving more time for the tribe. Even if the tribe ships couldn't match the speed of Xueqi's last time, they could still make it. Life on the river continued. In the fleet, everyone's excitement at the beginning had already calmed down. The children on the ship either ate or slept. When they woke up, they gathered together to chat because they couldn't move freely. A long eagle cry came from the sky. The ears of the several ferocious beasts on the ship stood up and their eyes lit up. Ao and the others didn't quite understand what Cha-Cha meant. They all looked at Xueqi. Xueqi grabbed the eagle's claw and flew to the sky. When he came down, he said to the others, "We're here. We can see the river bank." Ao was overjoyed. The two team leaders also shouted excitedly. After shouting, they immediately turned back to the cabin. "Team leaders, what are they doing?" Xueqi was confused. Not only the two team leaders, but also Xueqi and the others ran into the cabin. "Didn't we say that the drumming tribe is over there?" "Ta and the others are dressing up," Ao said and also went into the cabin. Xueqi was speechless. The so-called dressing up, it couldn't be what he thought it was, right? The ships were also communicating with each other. Almost every ship was experiencing the same thing. The silent cabins were bustling with noise and excitement. When Xueqi saw the shaman coming out of the cabin, the corners of his eyes twitched. When did the old man wear those bone ornaments on his head? He also wore a necklace made of animal teeth on his neck. The cloak was not the one he wore when he first came on the ship. At first glance, he knew it was a new leather cloak that had been carefully taken care of. Looking at the leaders, team leaders, and other totem warriors, Xueqi felt like a group of forest raccos were running towards them with their big feet. Bang 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 bang. They smacked their lips and ran towards them with smoke and dust. Maybe the people of the Yanjiao tribe thought that this day was a very important day. Moreover, didn't the shaman and the chief say that they had to leave a good impression on the first tribe they saw and the first partner they cooperated with? Therefore, Xueqi saw that everyone was dressed up like they were on the day of the ceremony. They were wearing animal skins, horns, bone ornaments, and masks. Looking around, they were all like this on every ship. Except for looking a little thinner than usual, they were all full of energy. They had gotten rid of the fatigue from the previous voyage. Xueqi covered his face with his hands and shook his head with a smile. He didn't know what the people of the drumming tribe's first impression of the Yanjiao tribe would be. In the drumming tribe, the people of the drumming tribe, who had no idea about the arrival of the Yanjiao tribe, were not in a good mood. Since they got the news, everyone was in a bad mood and prepared for war earlier than usual. The crocodiles had already left during the rainy season. Only the baby crocodiles that were born not long ago stayed in the tribe. Fu Shi returned home like a wild beast, his face full of fatigue. The family ate in silence. After eating, Fu Shi and his wife continued to carry out their tasks, patrolling and defending. The usually rebellious Chen Jia was rarely obedient. He knew that the atmosphere in the tribe was not good recently. Everyone was worried. Are they really coming? Chen Jia asked. Fu Shi raised his head and looked at Chen Jia. He sighed and nodded. At the end of the rainy season, they went to the Pu tribe to trade. They exchanged for more tools and better stones in preparation for the Water Moon Festival. It was at that time that the Pu tribe brought them a piece of news. Last year, a tribe in the central region discovered an important medicinal effect of the Water Moon Stone. Therefore, the Water Moon Stone became very popular in the central region. A piece of the same size Water Moon Stone could be exchanged for 2 to 3 times more things than before. The big tribes in the central region would not blatantly come to find trouble with the remote tribes. However, other tribes were not so sure. For example, 2 years ago, the drumming tribe came to probe. It was said that because the drumming tribe failed this time, they were likely to join forces with other tribes to snatch the Water Moon Stone. The drumming tribe alone was enough for the drumming tribe. If there were other tribes, it would be even more difficult. Moreover, since they heard that the drumming tribe would be found trouble, the Luo tribe and other tribes that were relatively close began to avoid the drumming tribe. If the drumming tribe wanted to ask them for help, it would be impossible. Everyone avoided them, for fear of getting into trouble. As for the Pu tribe, they only provided some information and clues. It was impossible for them to get involved in such trouble. Therefore, the chief of the drumming tribe, Fan Mu, was very worried. Since the day he received the news, he could not sleep well. He could only ask the people in the tribe to prepare as many tools and weapons as possible. This year may be the most difficult year for the drumming tribe, Fan Mu said. The shaman of the drumming tribe sat next to him. He looked worried, as did the others around him. The Water Moon Stone became more precious. This was a good thing but also a bad thing. The good thing was that the drumming tribe could use the Water Moon Stone to exchange for more things. The bad thing was that they did not know if they could keep these Water Moon Stones. Why are we afraid of them? If they want to come, we'll kill them all. A warrior's eyes were cold. In his tawny eyes, the vertical pupils looked colder and sharper. However, he was hot-tempered. Yes, we'll kill them all. Just like before. We're not afraid. Several younger people could not help shouting. Shut up! The chief Fan Mu scolded. There were many people who were not afraid of death, but it did not mean that they were not worried. It could be foreseen that this time, if the drumming tribe really joined forces with others to attack the drumming tribe, what would happen to the drumming tribe? Let's go and find some people. A middle-aged warrior next to him said. Fan Mu shook his head. There were only a few days left. No one near them was willing to get involved. They were not familiar with those far away. Even if they could persuade others to help, they might invite a wolf into the house. Fan Mu did not trust them. The room suddenly became quiet. Only several young people were breathing heavily. They were angry because the drumming tribe repeatedly came to rob the Water Moon Stones. They were also angry that the surrounding tribes did not help. If only Xiao Xian's tribe was here. A man suddenly whispered. When Xiao Xian left, he said that the Yanjiao tribe and the drumming tribe would have friendly exchanges. If the Yanjiao tribe was here, they would help. But where are we going to find the people of the Flaming Horns tribe? Xiao Xian did not say where their tribe was. The room became quiet again. At this time, a whistle came from the riverbank. What's going on? Someone is attacking so soon. No, it's not like someone is attacking. It's more like, not long after, a patrolling warrior rushed in panting. He ran too fast and did not stop, so he was caught by Fan Mu and forced to stop. The man's face was red, either because he was running or because he was too excited. What's going on? Fan Mu asked. When the warrior was about to speak, Fan Mu heard a long and loud eagle cry. It was very familiar. Chapter 230. Originally, they were preparing for battle, but when they heard the whistle, they tensed up again. Then came the cry of an eagle, which made everyone a little bewildered. But soon, everyone was sure, because they saw the leader and the shaman, as well as the group of people behind the leader, rushing straight to the riverbank. Could it be? Fu Shi, who was patrolling, was surprised. Brother, I have something to do, so I'll leave for a while. Fu Shi said to the people next to him, and then ran to the riverbank. Chen Jia, who was left at home, was secretly sharpening his knife. After hearing the eagle cry, He didn't even have time to hide his knife, and rushed to the riverbank with it. He was so familiar with the eagle cry, because he often heard it. Fan Mu, the chief and the others, kept looking for the eagle in the sky, and then followed him to the riverbank. "It's Xueqi," Fan Mu said happily. He didn't expect that Xueqi would come. He could ask Xueqi if he could ask the Yanjiao tribe to come and help. Chief, look." The people next to him elbowed Fan Mu. Because he was too excited, he didn't control his strength well. Usually he wouldn't dare to do this, but at this time, he didn't care. Fan Mu was about to ask, but when he looked down and saw the situation on the river, he suddenly opened his eyes wide. Not only Fan Mu, but also everyone who came to see the scene in front of them were stunned. On the surface of the river in the distance, many boats were approaching this place. Although they couldn't compare with some boats of the longboat tribe, for the people of the drumming tribe, these were the biggest and best boats they had ever seen, especially the three in the front. Is that the longboat tribe? This was the first thought that came to the people who saw the fleet. No, it's not. That's the Yanjiao tribe. The people next to him shouted, and their voices were trembling with excitement. Although the boats were still a little far away, people with good eyesight could vaguely see the patterns painted on the sails, which were like the totem patterns of the Yanjiao tribe they had seen in Xueqi's place. The Yanjiao tribe. It was said that Xueqi had a good relationship with the Yanjiao tribe. Did the Yanjiao tribe get the news and come to help? If so, it would be great. When the people around them were avoiding them like the plague, when they thought that they would have to face the attacks from all sides alone, when they were planning to suffer the greatest loss, a helper came. How great was this news? On the other side, the people on the boat, they were getting closer and closer. We're finally reaching the shore. Are they people of the drumming tribe? Are they all coming to welcome us? So many people. Tuaw, can you help me check if the horns on my head are crooked? Didn't they said there were crocodiles? Where are the crocodiles? Where are the crocodiles? Cha-cha, cha-cha-o, ao, ao's ao. Ao's ao, ao's ao tribe. Ao, ao's ao tribes. Ao, ao, and ao. Ao, 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 ao. Was after all of ao, ao, bb, ao, ao of the ao. This was Ao. He was trying to maintain a dignified image of a leader, but he was sweating too much because he wiped his palms on his animal skin coat from time to time. The shaman kept a standard shaman smile and looked calm. If people didn't know him well, they would think that the old man was very calm. Cha-Cha, who flew over first, hovered in the air for a while. He didn't land until the chief and the shaman of the drumming tribe arrived. When he was close to the ground, Xueqi loosened his hand holding the eagle's claw and landed on the ground, standing steadily. Everyone, long time no see. Xueqi looked at the people of the drumming tribe and smiled. Xueqi, you've grown taller. Are you here to help? Xueqi, are the people behind you from your tribe? Fan Mu pushed aside the people squeezing forward, suppressed the excitement and joy in his heart, and said to Xueqi, long time no see. Welcome to the drumming tribe again. Well, our tribe is going back to the old haunt this time, so we need to pass through your tribe. Sorry to bother you, Xueqi said. In the drumming tribe, there were several tributaries flowing to the river, one of which was relatively wide. Now the river level hadn't dropped much, so boats could go in from there. No problem. Fan Mu agreed without hesitation, but glanced at the shaman, and then said to Xueqi, I'll meet them in person. Xueqi noticed the conversation between the two leaders of the drumming tribe and knew that there was something hidden in it. Thinking that it was close to the harvest time of the water moonstones of the drumming tribe, he guessed that it was related to this matter. After talking with Fan Mu, Xueqi returned to the boat again and told the shaman and Ao about Fan Mu's reply and his guess. If it's just the invasion and robbery you mentioned, it's okay to help them. After all, they have helped you and Yanji. This is the first tribe we've seen. As you said, Xian, since we should have friendly exchanges and help each other, we should help them when they are in trouble. Ao said. Indeed. The shaman said, the Yanjiao tribe shouldn't be silent. Ao smiled, looked at the approaching shore and said, then let's take this as the first whetstone for our Yanjiao tribe after we return. The fleet sailed towards the tributary of the drumming tribe, and the people on the shore also gathered there. The people of the drumming tribe were ecstatic when they saw Xueqi and the Yanjiao tribe at the beginning, and laughed out loud. But as the fleet got closer and closer, they gradually quieted down. When the fleet got closer, The people of the drumming tribe were stunned when they saw the well-dressed people on the ships. The people of the Yanjiao tribe were dressed a little too gorgeously. On such a hot day, they wore thick animal skins. Didn't they feel hot? But the skin looked really good. It was oily and smooth. They would definitely keep warm in winter. They wondered how many water moonstones they could exchange for it. And those people were wearing necklaces made of animal teeth. Damn, look at those animal teeth. What kind of beast did that belong to? Did a beast have such big teeth? The ships of the Yanjiao tribe sailed from the river to the tributary, and then docked on the shore. The people of the two tribes could see each other clearly. In fact, the people of the Yanjiao tribe were also excited. But when they saw that the chief was so serious, they also became serious. Following the chief was the right thing to do. The people of the Yanjiao tribe were as serious as when dealing with ferocious beasts. Therefore, a murderous aura spread out. A gust of wind blew. Fu Shi shivered and scratched his arm. He whispered to the people next to him. Why do I feel a little? He didn't say the word scared. The others had the same feeling as him. Originally, they thought that the people of their own tribe were domineering enough. But today, when they saw the people of the Yanjiao tribe, they suddenly felt that there was always someone better than them. They looked so tough. Even Xiao Xian didn't look like that. Is this really a small tribe? Someone asked in a low voice. If they only looked at the number of people, it was indeed not a large tribe. But they all looked like they were not to be trifled with, and the beasts on the ships were eager to have a try. No. Chief, those on the ships are not beasts, are they? I have never seen such beasts. A warrior came over and pointed at the beasts on the ships, and said to Fan Mu. They are ferocious beasts. Fan Mu stared at the ships and said word by word. He was not sure when he first saw them, but now he was closer. The more he looked at them, the more he felt something was wrong. He thought that Xiao Xian's eagle was a ferocious beast. So, those on the ships were probably ferocious beasts too. Fan Mu suppressed the shock in his heart. His palm holding the knife was sweaty. He really didn't expect that the Yanjiao tribe would be such a tribe. Even though there were not many people, Fan Mu was sure that if the two sides fought now, the drumming tribe would definitely be at a disadvantage, and it would be very miserable. The wooden ladder was put down. On the largest ship, the chief and the shaman walked down side by side. Behind them were two team leaders, and behind them were the excellent young warriors of the Yanjiao tribe. Originally, many people wanted to jump off the ship directly, but Ao told them to walk down the ladder, so they all followed him. Welcome to the drumming tribe. I am Fan Mu, the chief of the drumming tribe. Fan Mu stepped forward with a perfect smile and said, Nice to meet you. Ao's serious face also showed a smile. I am Ao, the chief of the Yanjiao tribe. The two shamans also faced each other and saluted in the way of their respective tribes. For shamans, saluting was also a very important thing, just like a ceremony. After the introduction, one of the two shamans smiled mysteriously, while the other smiled meaningfully. It seemed that everything was understood without words. Xiao Xian, who was watching aside, was speechless. It was not easy to be a shaman. Look at these two, they seemed to have had a deep conversation before they spoke. According to Xiao Xian's understanding of shamans, the two shamans had a good impression of each other. They had really been friends for a long time. The chief and the shaman of the drumming tribe invited the people of the Flaming Horns tribe, and Ao also planned to rest for a few days in the drumming tribe. Although everyone looked very energetic now, it was only because they saw the first outsider on the shore. They were still tired and needed a good rest. Some people followed Ao and the shaman into the residential area of the drumming tribe, while others, under the guidance of the drumming tribe, rowed the ship to a suitable berthing point on the tributary. But they did not get off the ship. Without the chief's order, they still had to stay on the ship. Moreover, even if they were excited to see the drumming tribe, they still needed to be vigilant. Only a few ferocious beasts, who were bored out of their minds, clung to the edge of the ship and looked at the drumming tribe people below the ship, which made the drumming tribe people's hair stand on end. After Fan Mu led people into the tribe, he chatted with Ao and told him about his difficult situation. The Yanjiao tribe is naturally willing to help the drumming tribe in such a dangerous situation. After all, Xian has also received your help. It's just that my people need a rest. The drumming tribe can provide all the accommodation and food, so that the Yanjiao warriors can have a good rest. Fan Mu hurriedly said. The drumming tribe had a large area, so it was not a problem to build a batch of houses in a few days. We can solve the problem of food by ourselves. We only need some houses. After all, there was still the ship. While the two chiefs were talking about the settlement, outside the house, Xiao Xian and Fu Shi were also chatting. The shaman and Ao allowed Xiao Xian to learn more about the situation outside. Those bastards who robbed the water moon stones. I heard that they found a helper this year. Xiao Xian. If you didn't come, the drumming tribe might have to face them alone. Fu Shi said angrily. Listening to Fu Shi, Xiao Xian also roughly understood what was going to happen. Don't worry, we won't stand by and do nothing. Xiao Xian said. Ao had already decided to use this matter as the first whetstone. Moreover, the warriors had been bored out of their minds these days, so their hands must have been itching for a long time. The difference was that the warriors of the tribe faced ferocious beasts before, but now they had to face people. Ao wanted to see the warriors' performance. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.